Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is March 14th. Yeah, it's Pi Day. 2024, and this is episode 866. I am James Jones. I'm joined today by John Lindeman.
It's great to be here, James.
I introduced you last week, so I'm going to introduce you first this week. Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
I prefer cheesecake.
It's kind of, yeah, I guess. I understand. And Mr. Greg Lay.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
So last week I said we would do email. We will do email, but we're going to do some new business first because I believe in the power of new business. I don't know what the fuck that means. I'm just gonna do it. Just gonna have to deal with it. And I am also vamping because I forgot to get my notes ready before we started the show. And I need those because otherwise I can't record what people talked about. And then I might forget, but now they're ready. So I'm going to go ahead and surprise John Lindeman with what's your new business, John?
Sure. I've been playing some Worlds of Final Fantasy Maxima, I believe is what the full title is.
Oh!
Yeah, this is a game I've been looking at for a little while just because it's a Final Fantasy themed riff on Pokemon, and so it's
catch people.
People, yes, absolutely. It's a human trafficking game, James.
Yeah, that's what I'm about.
Yeah, I know. So do the authorities. So this is it was just it's one of those games where, it happened to be on sale. I'm playing this on PS5, but it's also on Switch. But it's just one of those games I was always kind of curious about because, it's kind of what they would do. I tend to like these kind of spin-off Final Fantasy games, like Theatrhythm and stuff like that. It's always cool to see because it really gives you an idea of just how many Final Fantasy games are out there and the music and how many different characters there are. And so I just kind of like this kind of mashup stuff. So this one is interesting. It's very much like one of the modern Pokemon games where you're walking around on a 3D map, and you get random attacked by different monsters. The setup is very JRPG tropey, I would say. You have it's a twin brother and sister, and the sister is the logical one, and the brother is the one who's always making the bad jokes and always getting into trouble and kind of thing. So it's a very, very typical kind of setup. But they get pulled into this world where they have the power. We're sort of in a past life. They were the commanders of these armies they call them mirages in this game. That's what the Pokemon are called. So they were these mirage commanders. And somehow they've lost all their powers, and nobody really knows why. But there's this woman who has brought them here, and she's mysterious, and they really don't know what her connection to all of this stuff is, and why she brought them here. And so this is how the story starts, and so but it's interesting because you have one of the main mechanics in the game is stacking. So when you get into a battle, your characters who are kind of they can walk around the worlds, they can walk around the map in chibi form or sort of like a normal sized form where they're considered giants. And that determines what mirages they can stack on their head.
What?
Yeah. So mirages have different sizes. And they can be, medium. I think you can actually have large, medium, or small. Later on in the game, you get large mirages that you can actually ride around on. So there's this kind of combo element of having different types of stacks. Like you could have, for instance, when your character is in their kind of normal form, not their chibi form, but their sort of normal form, they are considered large in this stacking paradigm. And then you could have a medium-sized mirage on top of their head, and then on top of that mirage you have a small. And
so it's Tower of Siam but with people? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and apparently, the way that you stack things and different combinations of stacks determine, what sort of attacks that you can open up and stuff like that. So it can unlock special kind of attacks and stuff like that. So that's something that's definitely very, very strange and but it very much fits with Final Fantasy, where just like things are just weird, just because Final Fantasy is weird at times. So yeah, and the gameplay is, walking around, Final Fantasy style turn-based battles. You can also choose to kind of speed things up a little bit. You can speed up battle. You can actually set auto attack, things like that. So you kind of have a choice whether or not you're really leaning on the turn-based battles or kind of fighting in a more automated fashion. And it's kind of an active time battle system, and you can toggle this off too. So you'll see a meter on the left-hand side that indicates, it has, whoever you're battling, it has their little icon kind of going up to the top of the meter, and then it has your icons going up, and whoever gets to the top first, depending on, when you attack and stuff like that, they're the ones that get priority for the next attack. So you have a very good idea of when the enemy is going to attack next, because you can just see where they are on the meter and see when they're next going to attack. And that might be ahead of you, that might not be. But yeah, and you can also find different mirages. You have to do different things to capture them. Like some of them you just have to weaken them. Some of them you can capture them only when they're the last enemy left in the enemy group. So there's kind of different ways that you have to strategically capture these monsters. And then you can, of course, yes, very, very lucrative.
People are monsters. I agree.
Yes, absolutely.
But does the game tell you what you're supposed to do to get them, or is it that you have to fight them once and then it gives you the info like this enemy you have to corner alone, or I don't know?
Typically what you do is you have a power, and you get a character early on that has a skill called Libra, which allows you to you cast that spell and it'll tell you the information about that particular monster. And in there, on one of the pages, it says in order to so when a monster, so you're putting them into a prism, and so when you first encounter a monster, you get a prism by default for that monster. Whether or not you use it is up to you, but it lets you capture the monster. But when you capture the monster and you get it into a capturable state, they call that a prismtunity.
Did ChatGPT write this?
I don't know. But
this just sounds like Pokemon with extra steps.
Yes, it very much is. And a dash of
all right, so
Final
you
Fantasy
encounter
weirdness.
a Pokemon and you get a Pokemon Prism.
But are we sure that they called it a prismtunity and not an oprismtunity? Because I feel like that makes more sense, even though it doesn't.
No, it's a prismtunity.
Okay.
Feel free to look that one up. Because I was like, what? Because I'm thinking, I was sitting there like one of the first ones I captured. I was like, okay, it was like attack with physical damage to create a prismtunity, and I'm like, what in the hell is a prismtunity? And then I started reading some of the help files, and I was like, okay, they can't just say that to weaken it to make it capturable. I was like, what? Okay, sure, I'll roll with it. It's Final Fantasy. I'm good.
Imprisoning is a gameplay mechanic in World of Final Fantasy. It allows Mirage Keepers, such as Lan and Rain,
those are the two
characters.
Yep, those are the main
to
characters.
contain mirages inside prisms that can then be used for battle or other functions. The player imprisons mirages in battle to add them to the party for future battles. Also, you've neglected to mention the prism just looks like a blue Pokeball. It's even got a circle inside a circle on the front.
Yeah, when you capture them, yes, it absolutely does. And then it just puts them into a little see-through cube kind of thing.
There is a chart on this wiki called Prismtunities.
Yeah.
In bold, in large font, typed by a human who did not have enough shame to say, no, I'm not typing that.
Yeah.
You can't make me type that.
Yeah. Hey, this is... but I mean, it's very much on brand for Final Fantasy, where they have to name things they have to name well-worn concepts and systems in their games in the most abstract, confusing way possible, so that you then have to translate them back into something that approaches, this is what that is. Oh, they mean just, you can augment your weapon instead of adding some sort of materia to it. Like, it's just, okay.
I want to read you this Prismtunity because I think it's very funny.
Please do.
The Prismtunity is called Use Physical Attacks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the official description of that Prismtunity is? It's use physical attacks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Square Enix for explaining that. Use. The other one is deal a lot of damage at once. The description is inflict a large amount of damage in one hit. You're just saying the same thing. Why do you have two charts?
Yeah. So I will say though, there is a lot of humor in the descriptions of the different monsters though. So it's appreciated.
Well, that's good.
But I mean, just like in Pokemon,
you mean?
Yes, but just like in Pokemon, you can upgrade these monsters. I think it's called Transfiguration, and so some of these monsters have only one form, some have two, some have three, and so there's some strategy involved with, and they also have abilities that you can choose from at each different level. You have kind of a board that you can fill in with different, you can choose along different lines on their upgrade path until eventually you upgrade them to the next level.
I want to make a point here about how much Square Enix has broken my brain over the years.
Mm-hmm.
When you started saying the term for these things transforming, you got the first syllable out, and my immediate thought is, oh my god, they're going to say transubstantiation, aren't they? Jesus Christ, what are they doing? Because
Not
that's
quite.
where I'm at right now.
Not quite.
We are going
close.
to turn these Prismtunities into blood and flesh. That's it. That's where we're going. God.
Yeah.
Damn it. Thanks, Square Enix, you fuckers.
Yeah. So that's kind of your goal is to, level up, like collect as many of these monsters as you can, level them up as you see fit, determine how you want to stack your characters. And yes, your character walks around the map with two goofy looking monsters on its head. And actually during battle, if you get hit enough, it can sort of break your concentration and your stack can topple and the monsters fall off of your head onto the battlefield. And then you
Does that have an effect?
Yeah, probably. I haven't really seen anything. I'm pretty early in the game, but I haven't seen anything really too critical. But it does kind of cost you a turn because you have to use a turn to restack, at which point they hop back on your head.
That's so stupid.
It's just silly. Yeah, it's really silly.
It's so stupid.
But yeah, you know what? It's a great game to just kind of putter around in. The story is pretty silly. The dialogue, fortunately, you can literally fast forward through the cutscenes and avoid a lot of it. But it's your typical sort of, yes, you guys are the one. Oh, well, you guys are the ones. Oh, well, why? Why us? Who knows? Oh, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. There's just a lot of that kind of stuff. But it's a good game and it's really good. Right now, what I'm doing is, it does lend itself to a lot of grinding, but grinding to kind of min-max stuff or like get, just like Pokemon, kind of min-maxing it and getting the right abilities on a Mirage before you level it up. Right at the beginning, you are given a particular choice. And so I looked online, because you're in the first dungeon that you go into. At the end of it, you can sort of choose between getting Shiva, Rama, or Ifrit as a Mirage. Mm-hmm. And so I looked up, and of course, you can actually, if you do it the right way, you can get all three of them and add all three of them to your party and they eventually become a really, really good version. Like you can transfigure them as well, just like normal Mirages. But there's stuff like that where you can really maximize your return on leveling some of these things and capturing these things. You can just charge right through and say, just choose Shiva. But if you put some time in, you can get all three of them and really have a large advantage early on in the game. So that's what I'm doing. But it's very much, James, you talk about a lot, games that you can play in the background. And this is really one of those games. It's one of those where you're like, oh, you look at a guide and you're like, oh, okay, well, for this guy, I should probably level him up to level 10. And, that'll be the best way to attack this next boss. And I'm getting my butt kicked anyways. So I'll just throw this on in the background and I'll just putter through and, grind a little bit before I level up. And there's certain things you can do too with leveling where, if you only have, one Mirage stacked as opposed to two of them stacked, that Mirage will get all of the XP, whereas if you have two, the XP will be split for any battle. So you can kind of, tailor what Mirages you have on your head in order to, maximize the amount of XP if you are leveling. So, yeah. But it's cool. It looks pretty good. I don't think that, having it all, I don't think it would have any, I'm playing it on PS5, like I said. I don't think playing it on Switch you would actually lose any of the graphical fidelity because it's pretty simple looking game. And it's been out for a while, so there's plenty of guides online and it's pretty much a known quantity. But it's a cool little spin-off and a good time waster, I would say. Prismtunity. Cool. So look for Prismtunities. If I leave you with one thing, James, it's like, look for Prismtunities.
You mean you could have gone with look for a Prismtunity to play this game?
Oh man!
But
you're already on board right there.
Maximum marketing here. I've just been reading this spreadsheet that some well-meaning human has written. He's probably spent over an hour on to inform me that the Prismtunity of inflict doom means use the abilities that inflict doom.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You didn't have to restate yourself the whole way through. Okay, whatever. Anything else you want to talk about, John?
No, that's it.
All right. Well, that's John's Prismtunity for the day. Guillaume.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
Yeah, well, first of all, just going back to Ufouria, the Saga 2, because there was a bit of a mistake. It seems like Nintendo World Report, as a website, got the title wrong. It is not Ufouria 2, the Saga, sequel to Ufouria, the Saga. It is Ufouria, the Saga 2.
Oh,
it
thank
says
God.
so on the spine of the box. Thank God, not really, because the
God has no place within these walls.
Ufouria 2, the Saga sounded dumber, and therefore more appropriate and funnier.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but the idea that the Saga to the sequel to Ufouria, the Saga was Ufouria 2, the Saga, instead of Ufouria, the Saga 2, is some fucking Halloween
I would have loved
Rambo bullshit.
Anyway, so we fixed our database and the review title and everything. So it is, and I fixed also last week's description, James. So you're welcome for the episode.
I wouldn't have gone back and fixed it. I don't give a shit.
No. So there's that, and also I realized that I was editing my part that my new business of last week that I spent so long trying to describe a freaking procedurally generated level that it really wasn't that interesting, and I apologize for that. But also I didn't take out anything because I was too I didn't want to. But just to say that ultimately. It didn't really matter my complaints or my description of how the game deals with collectibles in these procedurally generated levels. I mentioned that you had to replay the levels over and over again to collect everything. I went and collected everything, and I got nothing for it. This game is not meant to be it doesn't even tell you you got 98 out of these 98 collectibles. It doesn't tell you the total really. Well, okay, that's not true. It tells you by level, but ultimately, you're not going to get any acknowledgement, any unlockable from doing that. So, and it was a bad way to finish playing that game. It was a kind of a bad experience to just keep replaying levels over and over again to collect everything. So I would recommend not doing that and just play the game for the vibes. Is that something that people still say, the vibes? This game is very much a vibes game, so if you like its vibes, that's the reason to play it. Other than that, it's it is a fairly basic platformer.
Would you say it's a whole vibe?
I'm not sure I mastered the terminology enough to what would be a whole vibe?
You know it when you see it. I would say.
Okay. Well, maybe I wouldn't say.
I mean, is the vibe so all encompassing that it's a whole vibe, Guillaume?
I I'm not a.
Fair enough.
I understand. I didn't study vibes enough to be able to answer
this.
Enough. I'm not a vibes expert.
Yeah.
I think people can tell. But so this game has vibes, and if you like them, you should play it. So
nice.
That's all I want to say about that. And other than that, there was a free on Xbox. There was a free weekend to play Mortal Kombat 1. Now, this game's available on Switch. From what I understand, it doesn't look nearly as good on Switch for understandable reasons. So I'm talking about the Xbox version here. But yeah, so I spent some time playing through like the first couple of chapters were free to play on Xbox this last weekend. The game on that other system is gorgeous. Like I had HDR on, and my I don't think my TV has very good HDR, but it was kind of striking. The lighting was very good. It was very vibrant backgrounds with the sakura trees just in the background. It was very pretty, surprisingly. And it's been forever since I played a Mortal Kombat game. I think the previous one I had played before that must have been Deadly something on the GameCube.
Sure, sounds right.
Deadly,
yeah. Dead, death,
right.
Murder, death.
Right. So yeah, it had been a while. So very pretty. I think that in the story mode you don't get to do fatalities, so I didn't really see them. But you do get desperation moves, basically, like when you're low on health with your first or second health bar, you can just click the L and R buttons. That's a mechanic that was also in... I just talked about it. Not Unforgiven.
Ufouria the Saga 2?
No.
Oh.
Injustice 2. Same developer, so like basically the same mechanic here. You press L and R together when the time is right, and you can pull off a kind of a super move that just looks very painful. But of course, Injustice 2 was like the Warner Brothers superhero characters. I mean the DC Comics universe, and right. It was fairly violent, but not as violent as Mortal Kombat wants to be. So where in Injustice 2, you know, like kind of if you threw the enemies like into the background, basically, like if you executed kind of one of these moves that are either level based or character based, like it looked painful, but in a kind of what would be something below John Wick? I guess at this point, The Matrix would be like a level
Hobbs
of violence.
Yeah.
Hobbs and Shaw. Okay,
yeah.
I haven't seen it, but that sounds right. Like no one gets hurt in that because all the actors had contracts that made it so that they couldn't lose.
I can't be shorter than Dwayne. Dwayne's got 6 inches on you. I can't be shorter than him.
Right. So I assume that you're correct. Like, so it was kind of cartoonier level of like, this looks painful. You know, I think that I used the example of, and I'm sure most of our listeners will understand this reference, although some of the younger ones might not, but the, Homer trying to jump over the Springfield Gorge, on a skateboard. You know, like that sometimes, like, that's literally what it was. Like, they were just kind of going down a hill, just like, ow, 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 you know, like it just kept going, you know, getting hit by whatever. Like, anyway, so it was very cartoony. It was a fun violence. Mortal Kombat, of course, aims at, more of a, and again, I'm talking about movies I haven't seen, but I'm going to assume that Saw or Hostel is more what they're going for here. Or just like in the more gnarly moments of a John Wick movie where someone gets stabbed in the mouth, through the back of the throat. There's a lot of that in Mortal Kombat.
Itchy and scratchy violence.
Yeah, but Itchy and Scratchy are realistic humans. So like that kind of violence is a little bit less fun to me. Like I was like, I don't like seeing people get stabbed in the mouth, in the back of their throats in movies. I don't like to see it in a Mortal Kombat game either, turns out.
I don't think Guillaume's going to be playing Sniper Elite anytime soon.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
we'll come back to that. But
my next game.
Yeah, no. So Mortal Kombat 1 doesn't show you the X-ray of the bones cracking or anything like that. Or actually, I don't remember at this point because it feels like it was longer than just last weekend. But anyway, like I don't really remember it. You'll understand why soon. But yeah, like the violence is pretty gnarly, but eventually, you get desensitized to everything. It's just that I wish you could turn it off. Honestly, like I kind of wish I could turn it down and not see that violence over and over again, because it's not as fun to me as the level of violence that was in Injustice 2.
I'm a little surprised you can't, but I guess they feel like the cartoony violence is their big appeal.
Maybe there is some option somewhere, but I haven't found it. And like this is not even I'm not even talking here about fatalities, right? Because as I said, like I don't think
you're talking about the regular violence.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, and so they really dwell in that violence. They really like, okay, so Scorpion has kunai, like he'll like throw one through the head of a character, and then like you kind of see it like in slow motion for just a bit as it enters the head, and then like he gives a kick on the kunai and like it goes a little bit deeper, and that bit is also a little bit slow motion, and then like takes the person and slaps them face down, like basically like curb stomps them, whatever.
Then he puts them in the waffle maker and they come out shaped like waffles. And then all of their family sits around and they have a breakfast of scorpion waffles.
No, maybe that would be the fatality, but in this scenario, even though someone got like a knife through the head, they are still fine to fight and look basically unscathed as they finish the fight. So
I mean, you are fighting like a demon who has the ability to end the universe. So I guess that would make some sense.
Sure, but then you've got people like Sonya and Johnny Cage who are just
Johnny Cage is just the Miz. It's the funniest part.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, like so, so it was pretty fun. Like I felt good about the game, but like I'm not like I think it's on sale right now. But on sale means the ultimate edition, instead of being 130 Canadian, is like 90 Canadian. I'm like, I don't need this. Also, turns out I already bought a 2-pack of Injustice 2 and Mortal Kombat 11 for like $15 just a few months ago. So I went and played MK11, and it's basically the same thing. It's of course from a generation earlier, so there's like imperceptible less fidelity, I suppose, to the graphics.
It's only 1080p violence.
Yeah, I don't know. The HDR maybe is not as impressive, although it's still HDR. I don't know. Like I don't really. So I can't tell honestly. Like it's pretty much the same thing. Oh, sorry. Before I move on from Mortal Kombat 1, the opening fight scene, like in this kind of tea house in I assume China. Where is Liu Kang from?
I mean,
it's not really Earth anyway, right? It's not. I don't know.
Liu Kang? I don't know. I think he's supposed to be from Earth.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna say China, a tea house. That sounds right? Anyway, like so, there's a big kung fu fight there with Kung Lao and Liu Kang, and Liu Kang is fighting Sub-Zero, and there's this whole bit like the cutscenes look so expensive, but also they're really really good, and it looks like. Like really good fight choreography, really good character models, and it's very funny. Like they've got cheesy one-liners that are just right, and during that fight with Sub-Zero, like they're fighting. There's a guy at a bar who's just drinking and who's like just trying to get his bottle away from these two dudes who are brawling. And so, like it's very much like doesn't even look behind him. And as like Liu Kang is getting pushed onto the bar, like he just moves his bottle to his left side, and then Sub-Zero freezes Liu Kang's hand to the bar, and like this dude still drinking, like he just like poured his drink, and like he just picks a bit of the ice and like puts it in his drink. It's just so good. It's very funny. So that's great. So yeah, so then I moved on to Mortal Kombat 11, and that's the game that has the X-ray shots of bones breaking and kunais going through heads. So the cutscenes are still very well, like basically it's almost the same thing, except that it's got 11 games worth of baggage, it seems. So it picks up a story where a lot has happened, and Liu Kang and Kung Lao and other characters are evil now because they died, and they're now in the
zombies. Yes.
Yeah, Otherworld. Something.
I can't remember the name. I know Earthrealm, and like there's one that's like Chaos, something like Chaotin Age or some bullshit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, like it starts with that, and then like it basically, I think that the story is about how we're going to get to Mortal Kombat 1, where they press the big reset button, because there's like time traveling shenanigans happening here, and old versions of the characters are meeting future versions of the characters, etc. But yeah, you get the sniper elite like X-ray shots of bones breaking and everything, so that's a bonus. And yeah, like I'm having fun. I'm surprised by how long my streak of playing fighting games has lasted. I guess I'm in that mood right now. Like I just want to see ridiculous fights, and I just want to mash buttons and see violence happen on the screen. And turns out that the studio NetherRealm,
Yes.
Yep.
yeah, like they deliver. And of course, like when around the time that Mortal Kombat 11 came out, there was I think that the studio head was, stupidly bragging about the what's the word, when developers are basically like can't leave their desks because they just crunch. Thank you.
What? Ed Boon making weird and unnecessary claims about the working conditions at his own company? Never.
So there was like very severe crunch, it seems, and I think that he had to, apologize for that. I don't know if the working conditions are better now over there.
I mean, they're at WB, so
now I'm sure the apology was probably not followed by returning stock options.
So I don't know. Turns out, crunch or no crunch, the games are very good.
Oh, there's lots of crunch.
I guess that's what's important here.
Yeah, they are really good. I mean, I was really impressed. I forget what the last Mortal Kombat game I played was. Might have been Mortal Kombat 10, maybe. But it's really, really good. I mean, they are fully fledged. They have excellent training modes. They look amazing.
Oh,
yeah,
the really training mode is almost like too deep. Like it's,
I agree.
I did like basic moves training, okay, like special moves training, sure, and then it wanted to teach me about like frames, and I was like, get the fuck out! Thank you. I like your. Is it appropriating if I say like bless your heart?
No, you're fine. As someone who's actually allowed to say that, you're good. Don't worry about it.
Okay, so bless your heart, Mortal Kombat, but I'm not going to touch that training. Like, I'm not going to count frames.
But you know what? Like,
but I'm glad it's there. If I decide to count frames one day, if I want to be one of those people, if I want to get to Evo,
which you do,
I will be able to, thanks to
Mortal
like
Kombat Evo. Am I right?
Even if you don't want to get to Evo, like the fighting game community can, not always, can be really difficult to penetrate because they have a very deep dictionary that they like to throw around. And so like having something to at least give you an introduction to that world, to understand those concepts, even if you can't necessarily like practice them, but at least able to like communicate in them or understand what's being said, even that's kind of a blessing. Like,
yeah, no, I'm glad it's there. I'm just not, for now, that's not what I'm looking for, so I'm ignoring it. But
so what's your Evo name going to be?
I don't actually watch Evo. I don't know what's an Evo name.
I'm telling you, Evo.
Givo's pretty good.
I mean, if you need an Asian, Guillaume, just say the word. I'll be your biggest advocate.
Oh, dear God.
Yep.
Sure.
Great. So the RFN Esports is another company that, much like RFN Films and RFN
we are branching out.
Seeing soon.
Yeah, so that's what I've been playing.
Investment opportunities still available. Greg, do you want to go next since you didn't get to go last week?
Sure, yeah. So I finally got around to doing the side order DLC for Splatoon 3. Yeah, so I wanted to wait and see a bit more on, the sort of the feedback on the game, reviews and such, because I can't say as I've become sort of fully embraced the kind of run type of game, that's become quite common and quite popular over the past so many years. So I wasn't like thinking, oh, this is a dead cert for something, I'll enjoy. I've enjoyed other Splatoon single player stuff before. The Octo expansion was pretty good. The Splatoon 3 kind of single player stuff was pretty good. So, I thought I'd probably end up getting it, but didn't want to just, go a whole year early and just get the, the different hub, or anything like that. I may as well wait a few more weeks or whatever it was and see, some reviews and things. And I did, although I did just, because the review for Nintendo World Report of, Side Order just went up. Justin Barubi did it. I did miss that because I'd seen some, and also I found a code online to get it a little bit cheaper last weekend. So I was like, okay, that's enough. I'll give it a go now. And so, yeah, I think my thoughts are pretty similar to what Justin articulates, as you can see on the website. In terms of, I think there's plenty of it that's pretty well executed. There's a few things, I kind of feel like I wish had been a little bit different, but overall, even as someone who's kind of a bit lukewarm on these kind of roguelite or run-based games, I still have enjoyed it to this point, and I think I'll probably get some more mileage out of it. I mean, basically, you begin with like a run that's like a tutorial run of, and so like that's naturally calibrated, to be pretty easy. I'm sure pretty much everyone is gonna like do that on their first time through, but the whole point of this is it's very much like, I don't know, especially with the kind of Spartan kind of aesthetic of it, because it's all kind of supposed to be this uncompromising kind of artificial intelligence environment or something. It has a feel of like Zelda shrines, aesthetically, but just like slightly changed to be a bit more sci-fi and a bit more devoid of colour. And some of the music as well is like, oh, am I fighting a guardian at the moment? It's really, really close. But although it's generally very good, the music, as you'd imagine it would be, but it's Splatoon. But no, you get the tutorial run kind of out of the way, and then it's like, okay, so this is going to be the format now. You have sort of test chamber type environments as well. Your portal would be another decent analog with all the white around, but it's kind of you have 10 floors, and then you fight a boss. Another 10 floors, you fight another boss, and then the final 10 floors, before you would fight the final boss, and that would be a complete run. And each individual floor, they can be very, very quick. They can be a matter of, maybe 30 seconds, maybe even less. Some of them, but like they have a series of sort of different, a few different concepts essentially that then get various kind of iterations on them. For instance, you get the kind of pool balls coming back from, I think, the Octo expansion. That's where they had the whole thing of like, levels that revolve around like shooting pool balls until they get into a particular spot. Or you've got the other ones that are more common where it's just like, okay, you've got enemy spawn points. They keep just vomiting enemies out until you destroy them. Or you've got others that kind of riff on some of the modes that have been in Splatoon multiplayer games where it's like, okay, you've got a zone that you've got to ink and then defend and hold for a particular length of time, or like one where you've got like a tower type thing that you've got to move to a goal. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of different Splatoon elements from the past. Like I said, some of it from previous single player content, some of it from multiplayer content, and also, like I said, just the way the enemies just kind of spawn out of portals and things is very reminiscent of Big Run, the kind of, the multiplayer mode where you're just fighting a bunch. It's kind of like a zombie situation. They just hordes of the salmonids in that case just keep coming all the time. I was actually just playing a bit of Salmon Run because they had one of their Big Run events where it's like, okay, we take a regular multiplayer stage and turn it into Salmon Run for a weekend or whatever. So yeah, the similarities you couldn't be ignored at that point. Even though these are different enemies aesthetically, these sort of fish skeletons with black jelly on them, but come in hordes. But there's a lot of the same concepts at work and a lot of the same feel, especially just in the sense that sometimes it's like, oh no, I've got this under control, everything's fine, and it can turn so quickly. Like, you just take a little bit too long to kill one particular enemy that can be a real pest if it survives, and then everything just spins out of control and you're overwhelmed very quickly. That's something certainly that you experience both in Big Run and in Inside Order. But yeah, so having gone through the tutorial stage, I guess one of the things that was kind of fortunate for me in a way is that the first set of weapons that you have that you kind of have to play with at first are dualies, which is what I use anyway. Although there obviously there are variations and it's not exactly the same as the weapons that I would normally use, because the ones I use have more range, but still it's like, oh no, I know this, that's fine. So, you know, there was no kind of issue there with getting to grips more with, because there's not many weapon types in Splatoon multiplayer that I could play with without getting just completely demolished by everyone, especially now. It's not so bad when the game just launches and there's loads of people playing it, but once it tapers off a little bit, it's mostly just people who will annihilate someone of my skill level, certainly using a weapon I'm not so good with. So that kind of worked out all right, and it wasn't too long before I completed a 30 kind of floor run and saw the ending and all that kind of thing. It probably just at the moment that it's like, yeah, I've seen, quite a few of these, level types or floors, a few times now, just where it was maybe going to tip over into like fatigue on that front. I did it. And then, what that does then is kind of give you more of an opportunity to come back, but with different weapon types, which is good, not just because, it's a chance for me to use some of those weapon types in a setting, in a scenario where I'm not going to be mercilessly destroyed because it's single player, but also because, like, with these kind of, the whole essence of this with respect to it being a run-based game, a roguelite type game, is, the perks that you get for the weapons and how different weapons get different perks and how those kind of change the way you play. And obviously, again, that can be different per run because there's this big random element of, the floors that come up and the perks, I'm trying to remember exactly how they refer to it. Like, your weapon is like a palette, right? And it's they have all different, it's literally like a color palette that sort of fills in with different, color based kind of perks. But, like with the dualies, for instance, on the successful run that I had, I ended up getting these perks that not only kind of let me do the dodge roll that weapon type has more times, but it also turned it into an offensive attack. So not only was I kind of dodging away from it, now I could actually just like pile into hordes of enemies and watch them fly off, especially with some of these other like knockback perks and all that. So you end up playing really differently. It's doing things with weapon types that one that I know very well that you have not done before in previous like Splatoon stuff, because obviously the regular game has gear with different, attributes for like how quickly your ink refills or all this kind of stuff. But some of the, and those are, some of the sort of chips that you get here, but some of them are things that you haven't heard before. Like I said, that dodge roll attack, you get like homing shots is quite an interesting one, especially for something that normally would be quite an indiscriminate kind of weapon, like a brush, where you might just fling it in front of your face. And now when you do that, like if you've got all these like homing buffs, like they're going to hit much more, well, they're much more likely to. It's all percentages and you kind of level them up and stuff. But yeah, it does really change the way you've got to use these weapons. And of course, there's a big random element to that, but there is also a certain amount of agency in it, because when you pick a floor, when you get to a new floor, you get to pick from among 3 different options, and those options reflect different buffs or perks for your palette, but also different difficulties and different rewards in at least one of the multiple currencies that are involved here. So you've got choices, and there's a little bit of a risk reward thing there in terms of maybe there's a kind of perk that you're really, really interested in, but it's on the hard, it's marked out as being on a harder difficulty. So that's more of jeopardy in terms of maybe it's going to bring your run to an end. But obviously still, those are only kind of limited choices. You can't just put your kind of points in anything you want. So that helps preserve the kind of individuality of each particular kind of run through the tower. So, it's, I think most of the things hang together pretty well. I think the biggest deficiency that you've seen identified in most of the kind of feedback and reviews on the game is that it just doesn't have that much variety. There aren't that many individual bosses that appear at those 10 floor intervals that I already talked about, which is a shame because I do like the large scale Splatoon boss fight. Those can be really fun when they do stuff that's, again, kind of different from the ordinary kind of Splatoon settings. And the ones that are there are fine, but there's not that many of them. But then even the individual, like, scenarios and stage layouts and so forth, it's not that many of those either. So I think one of the things that I was left feeling about it is that, not that it can necessarily take that long to complete a run, because, I've done a couple now. It doesn't necessarily take that long, especially if you get on a roll. Like I said, some of it's luck of the draw. Certain scenarios are going to go quicker, especially, if they kind of suit the kind of build that you're making as you progress. But I think it just in general, especially considering the essence of this, the goal when you craft this kind of experience, it has to be to encourage and facilitate replayability, pretty much at all costs. It probably should have been shorter. I would have said, make a complete run, maybe 20 to 24, considering they're so 8 focused on, anything to do with, Splatoon 2's Octo Ling faction or whatever. They should have just made it a little bit shorter so you didn't feel the kind of paucity of content as much, because it does feel like it's spread thin here. And I don't think there would be anything particularly, that much of a downside of having it take less time to complete one run, because it's not, what I mean? I don't think anybody would be certainly not that many people would be going into it thinking, one day I will complete one full run of this tower and then I will never play it again. Like, that's not what this is. You know what I mean? So don't be worried about padding it out. Like, make it quick to go through, and people want to go back through it with different weapons to get different rewards, like, more often. And they just don't really have the content to support the length that it is, I think, that well. So why it isn't shorter, I think, is a bit of an odd question to me. The other thing is just a minor flow thing in that, they do, insist on sort of embedding it in the, you know, like the fiction of the Splatoon world and stuff. And it's like kind of based around the two idol characters from the second game, Pearl and Marina. And so you have like, you know, a bit of chat with them between floors, and, you know, it takes a bit of time for you to look, oh, here's your rewards from the previous floor and here's your options for this one, and you buy it, and, you know, you've got a load and everything. All of that could have done with happening a bit more quickly. Again, just like in and out of each floor, especially sometimes when the floor itself, the challenge, may take only a matter of 20 some odd seconds. Those however many seconds between floors, which, you know, it's not really that many in the grand scheme of things, but as a proportion, it starts to feel, you know, a little bit more. And especially when you're going through it subsequent times, it's like, okay, you know, I've read a lot of this chat before. Let's just get things moving. So yeah, I think from a flow point of view, that would have helped as well to make it a bit more inviting to keep going through and stuff. And ultimately, the kind of incentive for replays and so forth is that, you know, when you complete a run, whether, you know, however it ends, if you die or if you see the final boss, all the kind of stuff that you accumulated, obviously it goes away for, you know, kind of, you kind of start pretty much from scratch for your next run, but it kind of gets converted down into a second kind of currency type, priz, I think they call it, which is then used to buy kind of permanent upgrades. So those upgrades, you know, will then make subsequent runs, you know, easier, basically. Although there are other options as well, like particular things you could spend it on, like just cosmetic stuff, I guess, to show off in your locker to other players, which is a thing.
I forgot about the lockers.
That is a thing in Splatoon 3, so I guess there is that. But also, like I said, there are options which involve like essentially making it harder but getting more rewards. But the vast majority of the things you can buy with this particular currency are attributes like, you know, more armor, decrease enemy damage, increase your damage, and so and just have like retries, because at first it's just like you have one life and that's it. Whereas, you know, you can buy lives, you can buy the option to continue, but at the price of having like the first currency, enough of the first currency type to be able to do so and stuff. So you get some agency there for like permanent upgrades, or, you know, do you want to buy, like invest in these kind of, the upgrades that involve like, okay, makes it more likely to get favorable chips and stuff like that. Like there's a few different ways you go, like defense, offense, some of this probability stuff, you know, there's options there. So that's kind of interesting. And of course that also makes each subsequent run, you know, something that's more likely to go your way. Although, you know, they can just go bad for various reasons. Like I said, sometimes it's a kind of mismatch with the weapon type and the scenario type or various things. So you get that, that, which is essential to this kind of game, that kind of random feel of sometimes things just fall right, where you get a bunch of the right kind of attributes coming in to get that complement each other. And you get start working that really well. And other times you just can't really get anything going, and it soon kind of peters out. But the other thing, the last thing, I guess, that's kind of is meant to keep you coming back is every time you reach a new milestone, which of the 10 floors for a particular weapon type, it gives you a sort of a locker key as a kind of reward thing, which then you've just got this set of lockers that unlocks various things, like just these kind of cosmetic things in some cases, but every so often it unlocks a new weapon type. And so, you know, that, and like I said, they do definitely change up the experience. That's one part of it that, you know, doing it with like a roller is completely different from, you know, doing it with the dualies that you start with. And some of the buffs, again, like just are so kind of different. Like, for instance, with one of the brushes, I got a bunch of perks that were basically you refill your ink if you're just using the brush on the ground rather than, you know, using it to attack, which means like you almost don't have to swim about anymore. You can just use that instead, because that's refilling your ink the way that swimming normally does. And then you complement that with movement speed on foot buffs, and you're just whizzing around everywhere without ever having to stop. Like, these are the things that are really fun. But once you get like those keys, you keep unlocking more such ones, and then that keeps introducing, a new thing to try, and there'll be opportunity to get more keys. So, like, that really is kind of the point that I've reached now, is like, okay, yeah, let's try it with this weapon, see how well that goes, see how different the experience is, see how many of the keys I can pick up to maybe unlock more weapons. But I feel like it probably won't be too much longer now before it's like, okay, yeah, I've seen the different weapon types that they have to offer, and I don't know how many of them it's going to be like, no, I really need to go and make a successful run to the finish with that particular weapon. I mean, the incentive is that if you do that weapon set becomes something you can use in multiplayer, which is not going to be a huge deal, because ultimately, it's just going to be some minor, kind of changing, a weapon type that's already available from the shop or, in the regular game. But, for some people, maybe the cosmetic value or whatever, or the particular combination is just something they really like. It's nice to have something that you can take back with you to the regular Splatoon 3 if you really like that kind of stuff. But yeah, I can't imagine there's going to be that many of those that are going to drive the kind of the need for me to go to the end. So yeah, it's I have enjoyed it, and I think I will get a little bit more out of it. But like I said, there's kind of limits. You kind of reach the limits of it pretty quickly, I think, depending on just how much you enjoy the base gameplay of Splatoon 3. But it's interesting to see them do something. It does genuinely feel like they have done something, even though it is undeniably a sort of mixing together of a bunch of familiar elements in most regards. They have done something that at times, especially when you get deep into a run, feels genuinely different from the various Splatoon experiences we've had over the past 9 years. So I think that in that sense it is successful.
Cool. Do you think there's a risk here that, like, we've gotten a lot of Splatoon in a decade, that we're hitting diminishing returns at this point?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's why it's a way I'd say it is successful, because it's not that easy to do that at this point, like to do what they've done with this, where it does, feel like you getting a somewhat different kind of Splatoon experience here. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like how quickly would a Splatoon 4 emerge on the next system, and how what they could do to make it feel significantly different or evolved from, where Splatoon 2 and 3, 3 itself is kind of relatively modest, iteration on the second game. And,
right.
The second game kind of felt like a full fleshing out of, everything that they did in the first game, where, of course, these are games that
get it out.
Especially at first. Now, of course, they did update it a lot. They update all of these games, but especially the first Splatoon. It was quite modest at first, and it grew, especially because it was shockingly popular when you consider it was an original IP on a moribund system. It actually was really surprising how much the first game managed to find an audience and give them the opportunity to really get it ready for the big time on Switch when that was actually popular. But yeah, I do wonder, where they can take it, what they can do, to renew it, for another system. I don't know how long, that's going to take, because we've already mentioned, I mean, with Super Mario Brothers Wonder and with Tears of the Kingdom, DLC was conspicuous by its absence. Whereas here, they've just brought out Side Order, they're still doing updates and new stages and everything for Splatoon 3. This deep into, the games are going to be coming up on 2 years old in 6 months' time or whatever. Like, I'm a little bit surprised that they are still at it just on Splatoon 3. So I don't know whether that suggests that Splatoon 4 could be a bit further off than we would have thought. But certainly, I mean, if they would have wanted to have, to recreate what they did in 2017 for when the new Switch comes along, you would have thought it's something they'd like to have sooner rather than later, especially if you're trying to build it, retain/establish that online multiplayer player base that you want to at the start of a system's life.
Yeah, it just feels like 3's positioning in the Switch's lifespan is so weird. Like, could they have just made 2 brand... Like, it doesn't feel like... And granted, I haven't played 3. It doesn't feel like it does but so much off of 2 to even justify its own existence, let alone, another wave of DLC, when it could have been, a successor system product.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Look, in the end, the sales justify its existence.
Well, yeah,
we all know
the sales
that.
justify its existence, yes.
Very much, especially in Japan, it's like over 4 million. I mean, that's like... It's probably sold twice what Tears of the Kingdom sold. In Japan alone, a bit here, but
right.
I mean that's a lot of it right there. But it's a fair point. I've got a lot out of Splatoon 3, and especially again that renewal that happens when it first comes out and a bunch of people actually play it for the first, because again, Splatoon 2, it was really fun for a while, and then it was not very fun because once a lot of people for someone of my ability and with shooters, because once it's left to the people who are just working it all the damn time, it's miserable. And so when Splatoon 3 comes along and that was the best part of it for me. I mean, the original single player was pretty good, and some of the new things involved were nice, but that had to be like the main virtue of it, was just like, you've got a whole influx of new players and it feels like there's more of a level playing field, and it's fun again, and of course inevitably that tails off. It would be hard to achieve that same thing without it being a new game, I guess, but there are ways you could try it. Things you could do, presumably, if you really wanted to say, hey, let's try and get people to pick Splatoon 2 back up, or that presumably was an option, but especially with the commercial performance, I'm sure they're not kind of disappointed at all with how things have gone with Splatoon 3. But there is a legitimate point of does it leave you a bit less room for what to do once you get to the new system? Does it make it harder to justify trust me, this is worth, not buying the game, but maybe even for some people, upgrade your system now because it's, does this, that, and the other. That's not an easy problem to solve. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. All right. So I spoke a lot about the demo, 7 hours of Unicorn Overlord last week, and then the time I spent sort of pontificating on how the game's mechanics probably worked. But of course I couldn't test those theories because I didn't have access to the game anymore. I have since had access to the game. An alarming amount of access to the game is probably the better way of putting it. My save was at about 7 hours and 30 minutes whence last we spoke. When I resumed it in gameplay, we're at about 30 now, so it's been about a week since it came out. So that's not an insignificant number of hours. And some of my observations I had inklings of last week, and have just become more resolute in how I feel about them. Some of them are new. Some of them are things I already felt really strongly about, and then just feel like, I was right. So I need to make a correction. The penalty for death is even lower than I thought it was. I say death. Incapacitation. A character that is incapacitated even gets experience, even if they didn't do a goddamn thing. If they were knocked out the whole fight, it does not matter. And the other thing I made a mistake on is I paid attention for corrections. You don't burn stamina walking. I assumed they did because the games they're inspired by burn stamina for walking. This one does not. You only lose stamina for fighting or for using support skills. So if you're in proximity to a fight that's happening and that party, that unit can contribute to the fight, either like remote healing or shooting arrows at the enemy or using magic on the enemy, that counts as a stamina burn, unless they're garrisoning a position that doesn't use stamina to fight from. So if you're in like a tower or you're in a town or something that doesn't burn stamina, they're usually marked by flags. You can use support skills or you can fight battles and you don't lose stamina. So that's basically the gist of stamina. There are skills that let you manage stamina better that I didn't have at the time. So it's less of an issue, but it's still an issue. So, there's some, my feelings on this game are confusing because, just looking at the label of what this game is, I should be here having, a personal awakening with this game. Like, it should be everything I want it to be because it's combining a studio with whom I have a lot of faith and who have produced a game I absolutely adore, and inspiration from a game that is amongst my favorites, and also whom I'm probably like its biggest and most outward advocate on the internet, not because I have a huge platform, but because like 18 people played this game in North America. So there is a certain amount of like, this game should be for me. And I'm obviously putting a lot of time into it, and I could turn my brain off and play a lot of hours of it in one sitting, but I'm not having sort of a transcendental experience while I play it. And I think there's a couple things about it. So one thing that this game introduced to this genre, I say it's a genre. There's 4 entries in this genre, 3 of which are from the same series, is the idea of a large overworld you could just sort of explore at your leisure. Now, there are things that block you from going to certain places. Like, there will be a barrier that you can't cross until you've cleared a certain story battle. Or you try to walk over a bridge and an enemy goes like, I'm going to wipe the floor with you. And then one of your advisors comes in and says, I don't think we should go this far. It's too dangerous. And then the game will pop up like, the enemies are level 38. And you're like level 12. Are you sure you want to do this? And then if you go like, yes, the game's like, really? So there are some barriers to progress. There are some that require quests to reopen them up, like a bridge might be broken, so you have to repair the bridge, stuff like that. But broadly speaking, the game just kind of lets you wander the world map at your leisure. And so you can engage in a bunch of battles usually. There's usually many battles that are open to you at a given time. There are these like small territorial battles where they're completely not story-based. You're just claiming a little bit of territory on the map. You'll unlock a town and maybe a fort, some stuff like that. Then there are the side story battles. Usually that ends with you getting a character. These are usually larger battles. And then there's the main plot battles, and these are the largest set piece battles. And in both the side story battles and the main battles, you'll usually gain a bunch of territory and potentially many towns and forts and stuff. The forts are good because that's where you can upgrade your units. You can change their class. You can increase the number of units you can have, or you can increase the number of slots on a unit. Towns are where you can go to shops. You can repair the town through these like delivery quests where you have to pick up items that spawn in the game world, and they respawn after a certain number of battles. Those are resources you just harvest. That upgrades the town so you can do more stuff in them. And I think you have access to buy more things when that happens. Sometimes you unlock quests by rebuilding a town, stuff like that. So you want to do that. And there's the big cities, and those are basically just towns on steroids. Sometimes they have like ports that once you rebuild the city, you can go somewhere different. But because the game basically just lets you wander around and do whatever the fuck you want, it doesn't feel like there's any kind of narrative pressure on me. Like there's a cognitive dissonance here. So I am leading an insurrection. I am to do a historical analog. I am the king who has been pushed out by the invader, and I'm now hiding in the swamp waiting for my chance to get them back. And the problem is that as I'm out just like doing the world tour, just stomping around doing whatever the fuck I want, there's no back pressure. There's nothing. So that means this game that is ultimately a tactics game, there's no real tactics on the world map. And it just feels like this weird mission. So I can go and open up the most broad and expansive combat front I want. I can be fighting on 3 on 3 land masses at the same time and just bouncing between them and not progressing the plot in any one of them with any kind of alacrity. And essentially, the game doesn't punish me for that. Well, and like, I understand the idea of like, we have to give the player choice, but ultimately the problem is because there are so many battles, especially these like really small territory battles, where the battlefield might only be, you know, a 20-second march from your starting point to the ending point. And they just fill it with crap. So you have to deal with some dumb scenario like, this one's full of archers. Like, there's 100 archers on this units on this map, and they're all going to join the fight when you attack. So it's like, okay, well, I just guess I have to send a unit that's armored, so the arrows just bounce off. Whatever. Like, they don't contribute to the game feeling complete. They just contribute as stuff. And so this game is full of stuff. There is so much stuff. Like, if I were hired to be the producer of this game's sequel, I don't know what stuff I would cut, but I would walk into the room and go, so what are you guys cutting? And when they told me, I don't know, it's why I hired you, I would walk out of the room and go, I'm going to go clean out my desk. I'll see y'all later. Because, like, there's a bunch of stuff in here that, like, I don't know, maybe it's good, and maybe it could be refined to be better, but, like, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not good. Maybe it's extra layers on top of mechanics that we know are good because 3 or 4 good games were created using those mechanics. I can't speak to Knights of Zenobia because I never played it. But like the world map is the place where it becomes the most telling, because I'll spend like 20 minutes just wandering around the world map harvesting items off the ground because they respawn. And it's like, well, I got to harvest these because I might need them for a quest later. And I'm just wandering the continent, just picking up garbage. And I feel no back pressure to do anything. Like, if the territory that I had taken was under pressure of reinvasion, for example, because the whole premise is there was an insurrection and they essentially overran 4 kingdoms overnight. Like, they just completely blitzed everybody and were unstoppable. So the fact that I've retaken half the continent and they don't even seem to give a fuck is really weird. Like, there's a big disconnect there. If there was a back pressure to force me to watch my own flank, to consider where I want to expand the battlefield, like, okay, I've cleared all the area in this continent. I no longer face a threat from this region. I no longer face a threat here. I can expand the battle space to over here where there's fresh enemies to deal with. Because I don't want to open up too many fronts. Like, that would feel better because then I could respond to things and there would be some pressure to engage with stuff beyond just what's, whatever I want to wander into to find. Like, it's cool that the world's full of secrets that you can find, but there are 4 regions in the game and every one of them has the same secrets. I'm in my 3rd region. I think there might be maybe there's 5 regions. I'm in my 3rd region, and all 3 of them have had this dumb quest where I have to find a book, which is always stored in a ruined castle that you can just pass on the map. And then once you go there are these big cenotaphs that are like carved into mountains, and there's always 4 of them, and you have to touch them in the right order. And so you have to like play touch the cenotaph to figure out which one's the right one that you need to touch. And then the witch who's in your party will go, oh no, the book says the griffin is the 3rd one in the series. And I'm like, why don't you just tell me the whole series then? Why do I have to go touch them in this fucked up game of Simon to go get the stupid prize at the end? It's like, it's nice that the game has these things in the world that reward you for searching for them, but it's the same things in every region. It's very Ubisoft Tower-esque in that way. Does that make sense? Like, there's no tower for me to climb and unlock it, but every region has these same things in it. There's the Ring of Circles where you get I can't remember what the fire gemstone out of that you can trade for items later. There are the churches that you have to pray at their graveyards. There's always 4 of those. There's the 4 carved statues I talked about. There is these doors that I don't even have the mechanism to open them yet, but every time I get there, the same character walks out of my party and says the same goddamn thing of, what's with these doors? They're locked. And then the sequence ends and it's marked on the map as another one of the doors. It's like all these things on their own, it's like, oh, wow, they put extra stuff into the world. That's really cool. But in the end, they don't contribute to making the game feel more concrete. They just contribute to making the game feel more. And so I'm spending a lot of time just wandering around between fights. And I might have 4 or 5 fights on the map I can go fight, and maybe 2 of them have a story attached to them, and 3 are just territory battles. But they don't contribute anything. They're just there. And when you go fight the territory battles, they really don't contribute anything. They're kind of frustrating because the game has a time limit. And the time limit's measured in time where you're on the map moving when the game is moving in real time. Because like the game moves in real time until you pause it or a battle starts. And so the time limit for some of these might be 1 minute. Like it's actually just 1 minute of map movement, which is actually really small, but could take, 10 minutes to clear because the game's constantly stopping and starting and stopping and starting time. And yeah, there might be an interesting puzzle of enemy configurations to solve, but the game is breakable. Like I've already got a unit that's kind of broken. Her unit is, Yarna's unit is very strong against armored units. It's very strong against cavalry. It's very strong against archers. It's very strong against evasive units. It's very strong against debuffed units. Its one weakness, its singular weakness is a flying unit unless it gets off first strike, and then that flying unit is absolutely astrally fucked. So it's like, okay, well, this unit is actually really strong unless a dice roll goes badly. But the game tells you everything's predictable. So it's like there's no dice roll. I know it's going to go poorly. So it's like, well, okay, so I have this Omni key. All right, whatever, but I can only make one of them, so it's not a big deal. It's not like Ogre Battle where I could manufacture these units. Okay, so it's not a huge deal. But it just feels like if there was something to keep the game moving, I would be much more engaged. Like if there's something to keep the plot rolling, to keep the battles in sort of a, not necessarily linearity. Like there's a point where you hear a voice from the heavens saying you need to go to the place where the very Tolkien-esque elves are. Like to the point where they even have like Sindarian sounding names. Or you can go to I can't remember what the other the Dragon Riders kingdom, where your cousin is currently being Kern?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Where you're constantly being, you're like go rescue your cousin, essentially. But there's no, like, which one you pick has no bearing on anything.
Yeah, I mean, do you always feel like you're having to figure out where to go next?
No, I feel like there's no pressure to go anywhere. I just go wherever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
I would prefer it if I had to make a choice. If I knew I was going to have to give something up. If like I overextended my battle lines and it's still, like I'm going to have. It
doesn't sound like you have any guidance really on what you need to do next. Like so, there
are so it's very Breath of the Wild in this way. Like I have a main quest, and I've got like 3 main quests right now. One of them is go beat the boss, who's right in the middle of the map, just like Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, but if the stuff that's off the beaten path isn't compelling, then who cares?
Right.
That was the thing about Breath of the Wild is that there's something shiny over there that distracts you from the main quest, but that something shiny is actually something really cool and interesting.
Right. Breath of the Wild had a lot of quests that were like, oh, it's the same shit, but those were super low priority. Those were like collecting the seeds and stuff. Like these are like battles. These are story sequences nominally. I would just like to, like, I found that lately I'm just sort of advancing on. And yeah, you can build interesting classes, but because of the restrictive nature of how the game gives you access to units and unit additions, it limits your ability to do stuff. So you have to buy the ability to have more than one unit, and every unit you buy costs renown. And then you have to spend to have more than 2 characters in it, and the amount you have to spend per character slot is like factorial. So the 5th and final slot's like 200 renown. I'm not collecting renown at a huge rate here. So like that's expensive, and I've got 8 units. But the thing is, the game's also just pouring party members on me. Like just endlessly giving me new party members. And I don't have anywhere to put them. So I don't know if they're any good or not. And I've spent time refining the units I have, so I don't want to blow them up to slide these new people in. And so, like, I've got a tool for every situation. Do I need to make new tools for every situation? Probably. Because when I just throw a bunch of riffraff together that I've picked up, they're all really strong. So it's like, well, okay, I don't know what to do with this. Now, again, I'm comparing this to Ogre Battle, where you get 5, and 5 is the number. Like, the number is 5, and 5 is the number. They will not have to expand these units or anything like that. And I have the time and energy to make experimentation. The other thing is the interface for, like, setting up units kind of sucks. And it's clearly inspired by the Ogre Battle one specifically, even less so than, like, Soul Nomad. But it just doesn't feel good. Like, I'm constantly pressing the wrong button to do stuff. It's not easy to swap out equipment. Like, that was one of my great joys in Ogre Battle, was just going in and, like, redoing everybody's equipment. Because I could do it really fast. And I could go, like, just page through characters and go page. Oh, this sword's for you, buddy. Whereas in this one, it's like I have to deselect the unit, scroll through to the next character unit, open up the menu, open up the sub-menu, see what their equipment is, find the piece I want to compare them to, tab through to see if it's better or worse, assign it, and then I don't know if I'm even making the best decision for that character because of the bonus skills you get from that item. I have to think about it. Or if that item is better spent on a different character who could also use it. So, like, I have all these items I'm collecting from battles, and I'm not even bothering to re-equip people because it just takes too fucking long. I finally did a mass re-equipping the other day because I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it. And not because I needed to, because I'm still steamrolling people, but, like, because I was just like, I should probably be looking at the equipment screen more often. And it took me like 20 minutes. It sucked. But, there is a button to just, like, do the best equipment available, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best equipment for your longer term strategy. It just means it's the best for this one person. And that may be a terrible waste of that equipment. You might be better off putting it on somebody else. So there's all kinds of stuff where it's like, yeah, I like that this is here. But then it's like, but we've put too much of it in the game. So it makes it hard to weed out the thing I need to do versus the thing I want to do versus the thing I don't want to do but need to do versus the thing I don't want to do and shouldn't fucking bother with. But all that being said, some of these battles are really good. Some of these story battles have really interesting set pieces that are complicated. And you look at them and you're like, all right, so there's a ballista on that side, and there is a catapult over here, and there's an absolute fuckload of archers who are waiting to just tear my ass apart. So what do I do? Well, there's a forest. I can march this unit through the forest and get right on top of the ballista and take it out before it attacks me. Great, but then that unit is completely fucked because they're surrounded. How do I get them out? And, like, there's things that you have to start thinking through. And with the time limit, even with the game pause, there's still a time limit. Like, there's no time to go back and try a different strategy. That actually has utility because I can sit there and go, like, okay, I'm going to go launch not a suicide mission. I'm going to go launch this, like, go disrupt the enemy flow because the bases the enemies control are constantly spawning a unit on a cycle. So, like, you want to get them out of their hands so that shit fucking stops. And you can continue advancing. And because, again, there's a time limit. So there's like these, all right, I need to run a surgical team to go this way and deal with that problem over here before I can advance because they're completely covering. It's very Fire Emblem-y in a way that Ogre Battle isn't. So it's like, I need to go deal with that problem over here. I've got this problem over there. And, like, if I want to advance towards the second problem, I have to deal with the first one. But if I go head on the first one, I'm going to get absolutely destroyed. So how do I get over there, solve that problem with minimum losses, and then not have those units be stuck out of the battle because they still have utility. And with the time limit, I don't want to leave them there. I want to keep them moving, keep them engaged. How do I make all these pieces work together? Like, those big battles that do that are really interesting. I just had a battle that was pretty long, and it was extremely large. It was a side quest battle. And essentially there were two approaches to the capital, but they were both sealed off and you had to clear areas to open up the bridges. And so I had to deal with the fact that the enemy had archers because they're elves. They had archers everywhere, just a nightmare of them. And so I'm like, okay, how do I disengage them? Well, the game gives you options. There are skills that you can use in the field using your, I can't remember what the term is, glory or something like that you accumulate for beating enemies. That make you invisible or make you move faster or make you less susceptible to attacks on the field versus attacks in battle or whatever. There are ones that you can use to heal. There are items you can use to mask your presence until combat starts. You can use the forests. You can use flying units to get there faster or to avoid some hazards. Like, there in that stage, the enemy was setting the forest on fire. So you took damage if you were in the forest. So it's like, how do I get to the enemy without being seen so I can get the drop on them? Well, the answer is I couldn't. I had to fight out in the open. So what combinations of units can shield each other so fighting in the open under fire isn't the threat that it normally is? How do I break these units up so I can leverage their various skills and keep everyone alive? And that was really tough. And it made that battle really interesting and kind of stressful. And so like I was working out. So I was on the elliptical for about an hour and 20 minutes. And it took pretty much the whole workout session to run that battle in the story sequence. And that was a really awesome battle. And if more battles were like that, that would be cool. But not just like that. Because the problem is the game has some neat ideas and then it reuses them a few times. And it's like, I don't really want that. I want new ideas. I want new challenges. I want new problems to solve. Yeah, so like there's things here that are really good. It's a beautiful game. And these mechanics still work really well. And there are battles that I have found to be absolutely glorious to play. And then there are battles that are just like, yeah, just junk food. Just go do it. They're really small and like have fun, whatever. They're like the Halloween trick-or-treat style candy of this game. And yeah, I get like a town for it, but I've got so many towns now, I can't staff them all because you put a guard in them so you don't have to harvest the resources yourself. And it's like, well, that sucks. That means now I've got more people than I don't have enough people to harvest the towns. I don't have enough slots for all my people. And so like I feel like I'm missing out too, and that's making me crazy. Like I want to see what these elvish units are good for, but I don't know where to put them because I don't know what they can do. It's just a really frustrating trade-off, and I like this game a lot. I do. But there's so many things that it's just like, but why did you do it like that? Or like you had 80% of the idea that you had the freedom to decide the way the Resistance's campaign was going to run. That's a really interesting storytelling mechanic. And it goes really well with what 13 Sentinels does. You know, like, hey, this story is going to change if you get to this area and haven't met the elves yet. Because if they're in your party, they're going to have things to say. And if they're not, they don't, because they're not there. But if you bring the characters you rescue there to the elves, they'll have things to say about that situation. Like, you could do interesting things with this. Even if you know, what they're doing behind the scenes is they're shifting the enemies' levels based on where you've already been. So, like, if I'd gone to the elves first, I bet they would have been, like, level 8, like the Dragon Riders were when I got there. And the Dragon Riders would have been like 15 to 20. But, you know, that whatever. If I had actually had like a real reason to make the choice, go after them or go after them. And that choice had consequences for me. Like not going after the other area meant things there were materially worse. Or meant those areas posed a threat to territory I'd already retaken. Or forced me to rush back to deal with a problem that was developing. Like, that would have made things feel more organic. But ultimately, it doesn't. And I could actually see those territory battles, the ones that are really small and only return a little bit of space, being a great filler for, hey, the enemy came back and took some of the territory while you were gone. Now you need to reclaim it. So rather than making you fight a big set-piece battle again, which wouldn't make sense, like, they could say, okay, we're going to fight this small area battle, and that's how you're going to retake some territory. That's how you're going to drive the enemy back out again. And that would also be a nice analog for grinding dungeons they give you, because they give you these battles you can replay over and over again because they're the undead. And they're just for grinding. That's their raison d'etre. So, like, this would be a much better excuse for grinding. Let me go deal with the territory I've lost. And the people I leave to guard towns, even though they're still in the party to fight battles. I don't understand how that happens. Like, it would make more material in me doing that, because I could say, like, I need to leave the right person to defend this place because of whatever boost to get. Like, there's 80% of the way to an idea that would make this game infinitely more stressful in the right way. And they just didn't do it. Instead, they filled the game with repeatable nonsense. And that's a bummer. Man, like, this game was so close. And it's still good. And it might still make my top 5 of the year, depending on what comes out. But, like, I'm not talking about this because I don't think the game's good. I think the game's very good. I'm talking about this because it was so close to being great. Because it was so clear that when they were playing this game, these people who made it had played these previous titles, these previous games that they're borrowing from over and over again, and they clearly understood what made those games good, and they just felt like they had to do more than those games did. And that's where they made their mistake. They didn't. The open world is great if you choose to do something that affects the game with it, not if it's just a mechanism for going from battle to battle. And that's ultimately all it ended up being. And it's like, oh, guys, you were so close. You were so close. Like, Ogre Battle still has hidden shit in the world that you can go find, and you get hints about it. Like, characters will tell you about, like, you know, the Dragon Helm was last seen, and I can't remember what the name of the place you find the Dragon Helm is. And that's just, you know, just some random person talking to you. That's a hint. Go back to that battlefield and scour it, even though there's not a battle there right now. You can just go there and reopen the battlefield and wander around. The Dragon Helm is in that battlefield somewhere. I think they even give you a hint to where it is. It's like seen near water. Yeah, and there's a river, and you could like you walk to the river. It's there. You pick it up, and you get the helm. Like, they could have done stuff and kept some linearity, or they could have done stuff that wasn't linear and made it super fucking cool, and made this the game that advanced those games in a way that hopefully somebody else would emulate. I could see the sequel to Unicorn Overlord being transcendent. But these people don't really make sequels. Not much. So I'm not confident we're going to get one. I still think it's a great game. I still think it's absolutely worth playing. Well, it's a good game. Like you know, if I had to, I'm not ready to give it a score. But like, if I was doing score, I'd be looking at the eights, probably like the low eights. Maybe.
So you would say it's even very good.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah.
It's just like the stuff that didn't need to be there or should have been expressed in a different way. It's a detractor. Like, it's weird to say, like, oh, but they gave you content. Yeah, that content's optional. But is it? Because, like, it really shouldn't be. So, what do you do with it? And it's like, I feel
like you're coming to me with a review, and you're saying, I don't know if this is a 9.5. It could be an 8.5. And I'm having to talk you through it. And then you're like, fuck it, it's an 8.5.
No, I think it would be more between me saying, is it an 8.5 or a 7.5?
Yeah, yep.
Because like an eight for me is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and
it is,
like
yes.
this game, like realistically, like I'd probably land on an 8 somewhere in that neighborhood, unless the game does something really neat.
Like an 8 out of 10 for me is, this is a game where if you like this type of game, you will really, really enjoy this. But it might not be for everybody. But for people that it's aimed at, they're gonna really, really dig it.
And like, I'm sounding super critical right now, and I understand that. I am really enjoying this game, but I'm sounding critical because like I can see the seams where there was an opportunity for this to be a game that at the end of the year I'm screaming at people to go play. Like that, it was there. It was there for them, and I don't know they would have actually had to do anything like spend more money to get there. So it was
So it could have been up there with Ghost Trick, but instead it's down there with what?
I don't know. I'm trying to think what a good example of an 8 would be. Like a lesser Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
Not like much lesser. Not like a fucking Fire Emblem Fates. That's like a 7.
Yeah.
Like it could have been really good. I mean, it is really good. It could have been really great. But it settled for really good. And that's okay. Like, that's okay. But I can feel their here's what it really is. I can feel their aspiration for great. I can see it. But they missed. That's what it is. And that is personally, like, to me, I'm like, God, oh, why? You were so close. So, yeah, I'm going to, like, I put 23 hours in this game in 6 days. Obviously, I'm enjoying it. But I'm also not super engaged. You know? Like, I'm able to play it pretty passively, which I kind of expected I was going to have to be way more engaged in. And I'm not having to engage so much with building the units in the way I would have hoped I would have to. And yeah, the decision to really make it really expensive to fully expand your units, I feel like was a misplaced decision. Class changes aren't paying off as much as I would have liked. I'd like, when I do a Fire Emblem class change, I want to see big, beautiful, like, dramatic changes in the characters. So what they do is they'll pan up to the ceiling of this cathedral, and then they'll pan back down. And one time they did it, I'm like, wait, did the class change? because I literally couldn't tell the difference. I was like, come on, these need to be dramatic. This is the payoff of you spending a bunch of time with this character.
Yeah.
Sailor Moon is the absolute minimum that they should have been going with.
Yeah, in one case, a character got some, like, trim on her cowl. It's like, no. She needs to look dramatically transformed as a consequence of this. It's like, so yeah, that's only like 2 characters have come out of it looking dramatically transformed. There's one character I couldn't figure out why I couldn't change his class. I'm like, I really want to promote him. I can't promote him. It's because I'd already done it. And I couldn't even tell from looking at him it was already done. It's like, man, that sucks. So yeah, like again, these are all nitpicky things. It's just they add up. They add up to being like a detractor from greatness, and that stinks. But all right, I think I'm done. I'll have final thoughts on it. Maybe not next week because I'm probably going to spend one, it's basketball tournament time, so I probably won't spend as much time with it. But 2, I'm feeling a little burned out on it too. So I'll maybe giving it a little bit of rest will make it feel better too. So I'll let y'all know when I'm done what my final thoughts are. They'll be much shorter than this. I might do a little bit of a tips and tricks thing because there is some stuff I've seen. Guillaume sent me a tweet before we started recording. This game is broken in a way I didn't anticipate. There's a class called the Sellsword. It's a useful class, but I'm not using it that much because I've got 2 and they're not in any of my... one's in a party, but I'm not really using her for anything special. She's just a damage dealer. She's a DPS character, essentially. But they have a skill that essentially lets you hire more goons onto the battlefield. And it's based on the level of the enemies, not your level. And I mentioned that you can just go straight to the boss. He's level 40, and there's a level 38 right outside of him. You could do that and summon a bunch of level 38s for not very expensive. It's pretty cheap to summon. And just farm for experience. And I mentioned it last week. The experience rate you get is based on the level difference. And so if you're like 20 levels behind the enemy you just killed, you get like 4 levels worth of experience or more. I had one character that I had recruited in. She was like level 8. And I put her in a level 26 party and we killed another level 26. She gained 3 levels. So this would be even more than that. Boy, I'm glad this game is broken. I like that. I mean, I like that. I like that it's broken. Like, I want these games to be broken, but that is fucking broken. So I'm definitely going to go try that just to see if it works. Because that's very funny to me. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to do at least 2 emails. That's my promise to you. I don't know what they are yet, so we're going to pick them, we're going to do them, and you're going to say, wow, they did 2 emails. Good job. So stay tuned for that. We're back with listener mail. We're going to do 2 emails, I hope. I really hope. But you could send your emails to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. We would have done 3 emails, but I had to just completely lose my shit about Unicorn Overlord, so I apologize to email writers. Please keep sending your emails. I'm not going to talk about Unicorn Overlord next week. It might be your chance to get read on this very show, and I'm going to let John read the first email.
All right. This is from James, right?
Not me.
Okay. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for the excellent podcast. In regards to the question of what the next Mario Kart will be numbered, as in 9 or 10, my uncle, who works at Nintendo, reliably informed me that it will be called Mario Kart X.
I hate
this, but it will be referred to as Mario Kart Cross, as in crossover. Jesus. Nintendo will do for Mario Kart what they did for Smash Brothers and introduced characters, levels, music, and vehicles from other games. With my uncle's leak in mind, what content would you like to see in Mario Kart Cross?
Well, I mean, he could just tell us, right? I mean, he could just tell us what the content is. Like,
right.
Why do we need to tell his uncle what the content is in the game that he's clearly working on? And
it's got the inside scoop of this. Like, they're going to have Link, they're going to have Animal Crossing stuff. This is the really inside story.
I mean, it's going to be a crossover with.
All right. Hold on. I want to pause.
It'll be a crossover with Fast
I got you, Greg. You're right. Fast. Oh, there's not even Nintendo content.
To be fair,
I'm sure there's a Fast and Furious game somewhere on Nintendo platforms.
I don't actually think it came to Nintendo, but there is a really bad one that came out not that long ago. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it was an arcade game, I think.
There is an arcade game, but there's also a console game, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, for the volcano stage, we're going to have Steve Hewitt.
Yeah.
Like that's
true. Yeah.
That's necessary. Now, he'll never clear the stage, but he is there.
Well, you could also have a stage inside his watch.
No, it's not. What you do is you have the stage is based on the Rhythm Heaven Monkey Watch, but like one in every 10 times it's Hewitt's watch instead.
and Lisa just refuses to take it at the end of the race.
That's
just constantly refuses.
That's right. She can't win, even if she says, "I can't do this."
Like even like it's fucking Ray's fault that her brother fell in a goddamn volcano.
Exactly.
But I like that idea, the Disaster Day of Crisis stage, because you can do a lot of environmental effects, but also you can sometimes they just change the coins or the items, right? Like instead of mushrooms, it could be giant hamburgers.
Yes, definitely.
I mean,
I thought you were also going to say when it's again, it could be, I don't know. Normally it's Woohoo Island, right? Because that's got a volcano.
There you go.
And then once in every however many times it changes to be Disaster Day Crisis. And when that happens, the actual camera angle means you're driving into the screen.
That's where I was going to go. Yes.
Oh, nice.
No, I mean this is it. I mean Mario Kart has been going this way, since the DLC for Mario Kart 8.
Right.
Bringing other Nintendo stuff in. The number one priority is it's the lowest hanging fruit. They have already done some of it, but it's because it is probably too much to ask for some sort of completely newfangled actual installment in this series. More F-Zero stuff, please. The stuff we've got is pretty damn good. The Mute City and Big Blue tracks with the great sax versions of the classic songs and all that. But yeah, just like have a whole F-Zero Cup would be fine by me with other takes on, other classic F-Zero kind of models, White Lands, Firefield, whatever, because, it's just, like I said, F-Zero 99, taken into account, that is what it is. It still feels like we're probably not going to be getting anything that substantially new F-Zero. So, let's at least kind of, get more of it as a part of Mario Kart, and maybe if it all goes well, the tens of millions of people that play it might develop some sort of kind of appetite for F-Zero that could be exploited, monetized in some way.
With a detective visual novel, yes, I agree. Sakamoto's next game. All right, I want to take it a step further. I want to put these people in carts too. So I want a Royal Conductor Link in the Spirit Train. I feel like it's got a car. I feel like he would fit the art style really well. And we don't get to see the representation of the DS.
Yeah, to be fair, Wind Waker Link's probably a better fit than the Link they have in the game already.
Oh, it definitely is. But the Spirit, him on the train.
Yeah, specifically the conductor version of Cell Shaded Link, yeah.
Yeah. You could do the boat too, but it should be Linebacks the boat. I feel like that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Link does look cute in his uniform. It's a good look for him. But also, because carts can be driven by anybody, it means we could do things like put DK in the Spirit Train, which would be very funny to see him not fit inside of it. The train is in the 3DS Smash Brothers, right? I think it shows up as a stage there.
Yeah, that stage has survived, gone into other games, because there's quite for the whole Smash Ultimate. Everyone's here. There are stages that did not come back from,
right.
Not just in general, but specifically from Smash Brothers for Wii U and 3DS. But I'm pretty sure the Spirit Track stage has survived throughout, whereas other ones for instance that DKC Return stage where you kind of went into and out of the background, that definitely got canned. There was a pre-release before Yoshi's Woolly World actually came out. There was a Yoshi's Woolly World stage which never came back.
I've got one for you, Guillaume.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Toad, and Toad of many colors.
Sure.
Why don't we have Red Toad? Like, I feel like we have Toad, but we don't have Red Toad. Like, it's a total loss here, because according to Nintendo, that's a very different character.
Right. No, this is for me, but this is very specifically for people who follow the Super Mario Bros. Account, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what to do with this. Yeah, I guess we do have Toad, but must we? I guess we do.
We must. Yeah, I mean, I like when they give us Toad and they give us weird colors of Toad, but they don't give us traditional Toads.
Well, at this point, it feels like,
Toad.
We should get Captain Toad or something, at the very least.
Captain Toad would make sense, but what would he... Oh, his car could be... what's the name of the dragon?
Well, it could be a minecart.
I've forgotten. I remember the bird. That was Wingo when we talked about this.
Very originally named.
but not the dragon. I assume it's equally imaginative. Yeah.
It might be Draco, actually.
Ivan Drago. It's you've got Captain Toad riding Dolph Lundgren. That's a fucking crossover.
That is right there.
That's amazing visually. Yeah, I just think like a cart that's shaped like the dragon would be because he does ride the dragon throughout the. They
have those like the sort of interstitial bits with like the bonus coins where he's like the dragon is gold and he like breathes fire that is effectively like the golden fireball power from New Super Mario Bros. 2. It's very odd, but yeah, build it in. There you go.
His name is Dragon.
It's close to what we were saying, but still, I would have preferred Drago. You could press honk the horn, and it just must break you. You will lose.
Can we get some Mother 3 representation here? That will
only in Japan. James.
That will only be available if your console's set to Japan. Seeing these people lose their goddamn shit over icons. That was absolutely glorifying to me. I had the best time. I was having so much fun. They were so mad. And like it's a image that's less than 100 pixels in height. Calm down. Everything's fine. You'll be okay. I don't think Metroid really fits, honestly. I mean, Star Fox feels like it would fit fine.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, like just throw like more like the DS Star Fox game. The characters are pretty cartoony.
No, sure, yeah.
Go
and
more
that is
with
still
that
the basis
style.
Of the Fox model in Smash Brothers. And that is that kind of, they put more detail on it, obviously,
right.
But the actual design of Fox is pretty much that one, I think. I
would say you could do not Slippy, because Slippy's really grippy. Obviously.
Oh, yes. The Star Fox Guard crossover that everyone's hankering for.
I'm trying to think of what else you could put in there. That would be like...
Oh, there's loads, especially if we're talking... If the command is the reference points, there's loads, isn't there? Okay, because they had a whole bunch of characters in that.
But you could do a Landmaster as a vehicle.
Oh, definitely Landmaster, yeah.
You could do the R-Wing, but it's got wheels on it, so it's not actually a plane.
It got excised from being the most overused Final Smash.
Yes.
So you could put the Landmaster in, for all those people that miss it being the most overused Final Smash.
Do the submarine, but it's on wheels.
Yeah.
Before putting in Star Fox, I would put in Stunt Race Effects, and I would just have the cars being as many polygons as they were back on the Super Nintendo.
See, I like that. I like the idea of just like, no, we're going to be as ridiculous and nonsensical as we want. And
of course, there's a stage. There's a Stunt Race Effect stage, and it runs at like 5 frames per second.
It's letterboxed, heavily letterboxed.
Yes.
So I think the idea of the like all the characters, like all the stuff in the background running at like 5 frames a second while the rest of the game runs normal would actually be really funny. Like the problem is Smash would do that. The Smash Brothers team would be like, yeah, that's stupid. I love it. I don't know that the Mario Kart team has the capacity for, yeah, that's stupid. I love it. Put it in.
It's too bad. Yeah, it's too bad that Smash actually didn't put one of the Stunt Race Effects cars as a as a fighter. Like, I feel like, like people joked about, like, when EA announced that they would release a fighter with, like, their characters or something, and people were just like, what are they going to put in, like, car? And, like, football?
I think it was a Namco game? I can't remember, but somebody had a Smash, like, on GameCube that did do that in Japan.
So, yeah, it's too bad that hasn't happened. But anyway, like, I've been pretty quiet so far because I unfortunately, James's uncle, I think, might have been misinformed. Like, maybe, like, it was a little bit above his pay grade, but, like, it's the game is not going to be MKX. It's going to be MKX-MK. It's a crossover, of course, with Mortal Kombat. And so you are, of course, going to have Scorpion and Sonya and everyone in little carts riding around. But also this game is going to feature realistic crashes where you're going to see the X-rays of the bones breaking when people get smashed by, whether it's a blue shell or just like running into one of the obstacles on the screen.
And not that this is quite company appropriate, but the blue shell is like the cerebral bore from Turok 2 now.
So I was thinking about, games that have come out recently. And I was thinking, like, what would another code kart racing component be? I mean, obviously you could have Ashley in a kart. But how would you like theme a stage around that? And what I thought was, what if it was just like Mario Kart Home Circuit cross another code? So the carts are all scaled like it's Mario Kart Home Circuit, and you're just going through a video loop of one of the cases and another code, and every so often they react. You go like, ugh, as they're just walking around. Just like, yeah, make it a video segment. You can just get the return of FMV to my kart racing games is really what I'm here for. But then I remembered, we just, for Mario Day, Lego announced this year's upcoming Mario stuff. There's a really interesting Bowser's Train kit from Super Mario 3D World. But they teased at the end what the one more thing was Mario Kart. And I thought, well, wait, I've been thinking about what would a Mario cross Lego game be? And what if it's, we've already had a Lego racing game in Forza. And I think there was a Lego racing game that was just Lego racing. What if we had Lego karts in Mario Kart with Lego Mario in them, that weird blocky thing? So all the characters who were in the Lego, like, basically as opposed to being Mario, you could be Lego Mario. And it's the weird, like, slightly tinny voice because it's being played out of a speaker. With the light up eyes. Yeah, exactly. Being played out of a speaker in his chest.
It's a more acceptable variant than just like Pink Gold Peach, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Way more. Yeah. And like the carts that you could get with that kit would be Lego, and you could have a Lego stage that's just based on the various kits they've put out, arranged on a table.
Yeah, but if they don't let you make your own tracks, like, what a tease that would be, Sure,
but like it just as a stage, it would be a really cool stage, because if you take all the Mario kits, they've made some really neat ones, and just have them all there, including the giant Bowser statue at the end as a hazard.
But you can connect them together, right? That's the whole point. So if you can't do that with, or maybe the track changes every time you play.
Yeah,
and it's like always the same kits, but they're always, shuffled around.
You could shuffle them around. Or maybe they could have like 5 or 6 variants and it changes throughout the race. But yeah, I think that would actually be it would be a good partnership with Lego. 2, I think it would actually be pretty cool. I think it would look neat visually. And it would add something to what is Mario Kart that it doesn't have right now, which is bricks that hurt to step on. I'm all about it. I think a home circuit one would be really funny, where they just FMV a video inside some engineer's house. And so the stage is completely stitched together FMV video of you driving around somebody's house. That would be a very stupid product they could put out that I would think is very funny. If you pick Mario Home Circuit Mario, he doesn't move. He's just like a plastic still. I'm here for experimental. I want experimental Mario Kart. That's what the X stands for. John, what's your Mario Kart vision?
My Mario Kart vision? I I don't know. I would think, I mean, why not bring back, the old double dash? Bring that back.
But who's going to ride in the cart with you?
Well, that could be the thing this time.
Me in the game here?
Maybe that,
Yes.
but that could actually be a thing in terms of, you have the co-op part, like it was very much like the Mario Tennis school of like everybody had like an obvious like doubles partner when in Double Dash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's the whole reason why Luigi exists. It was because he had to be, they wanted a doubles partner for Wario in Mario Tennis. And then when they got to Double Dash, it's like, oh, well, that's, isn't that why Toadette exists as well? Wasn't she invented for Double Dash to be Toad's Double Dash partner? But yeah, but this time, if it's all about crossovers, maybe it should be more unlikely, rather than just like, oh, well, here's, Mario and Luigi, the two brothers, or here's someone in their female equivalent or whatever.
Choose enemies.
Just like the most again, if it was MK cross MK, then, it would be Mario and Liu Kang as his Double Dash partner, firing fireballs out of the sidecar or whatever they would have. I do believe that I am really surprised that they've never really brought back that co-op, like as a mode. Like, you don't have to build the whole game around it. I guess that's the problem. It's probably too much, more trouble than it's worth, right, to do it. But considering co-op is something, couch co-op is something that they have always been, very supportive of, something they think goes well with their audience, kids and parents and couples and all that kind of stuff, siblings. I'm surprised just like, no, here's like, we're not, doesn't have to affect every cart in the game or whatever, but like here's maybe as a compliment to like the single player cups, there's the co-op cups, and that's the whole basis of it. I'm surprised in a way that hasn't come back at some point. Like, I'm not surprised like Mario Kart Wii didn't have it, but especially the Wii U, Mario Kart 8 the first time when it was on Wii U and you had the separate screen and all that, it was kind of right there, and they chose not to, but what they chose to make was the basis for like the biggest sellingest thing in the world ever. So you can't really pick too many nits there.
So you talked about like having the crossovers be unique and not just obvious things. You're right, Toadette was created for Double Dash. What you're describing is Project Cross Zone, where like a lot of the partners are just like characters from the same series. But then you get the weird shit. And then you also have, like, the free-floating third character that you can stick with the party. So, like, Frank West from, what's a zombie game from Capcom?
Dead Rising.
From Dead Rising, yeah, with Hee-Sung Ko, who is a Chinese zombie from Darkstalkers, who her whole gimmick is she can pull whatever item she wants out of her giant sleeves. Well, Frank Wright's whole gimmick is he can use whatever item he can find to beat you up. So, like, they ended up, Frank West, they ended up being a really fun pairing, even though they're not from the same game, that had lots of funny commentary about, like, he would ask for things, increasingly ridiculous, and she would hand them to him, and he'd be like, oh, I could actually work with this zombie. But then when you stuck the extra character with them, that was when things got truly, truly bonkers. So, like, Phoenix Wright and Maya were treated as one character. And so, like, sticking them with characters from the Yakuza franchise was from the Mishima franchise, the Mishima family was really funny.
You could just do it with kind of like create odd couples, pretty much.
Yeah, like they would start talking about like, hey, can you he did do it with the Yakuza group as well. It'd be like, hey, can you defend me from a case? Oh, I don't know, what's the case? I threw my kid in a volcano. Wait, did you do it? Yeah, I did it. They're just like, I don't think I can defend you in that case. Just like weird shit, like characters that maybe they don't belong together on their face value, but there is real comedy potential in the two of them as a pairing.
Yeah, like Solid Snake and Bayonetta.
There you go. Yeah, Snake wouldn't know what to say. His brain would break.
Exactly. He would want explanations for everything, and he would compare her to a movie.
They did a little of this with the Smash Brawl, Subspace Emissary kind of videos, didn't they? Like Zero Suit Samus and Pikachu were teamed up for a while. Like it was, I haven't seen that stuff for probably 15 years or whatever now, so I don't recall it that well. But I do remember there's a bit where Captain Falcon just did a Falcon kick and killed all of Olimar's Pikmin.
Nice. Listen, I was actually thinking, John, that Snake is so terrible around women that Bayonetta would destroy his brain, and Bayonetta is such a terrible flirt, she would get off on it.
Yep.
And would just be leaning all the way in. I can kill this man. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Which would be great writing that Nintendo would never do. Never, ever, ever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the idea of a Luma riding another Luma. I don't know why that's sticking in my head. Baby Luma riding the big Luma. I don't know. The whole
the one from Galaxy 2 that was the big one.
Yes.
The big purple one, and then he's got his own little one. Yeah.
I think there's some arms
if they acknowledge that Galaxy 2 existed at some point, maybe we could hope for that. Yeah.
That's true. I don't know. I need something with some Mario sports or with some sports featuring in there. I feel like. Well,
I mean, we haven't. Especially since it does seem like the Mario Sonic at the Olympics is dead, and I don't know whether when there's going to be another Sonic racing game after.
That's true.
You had the Sonic Race, the Transform one was pretty good. I had that on Wii U, and then they did another one.
Switch, Team Racing,
Team Sonic Racing, I think it was. It seemed like I haven't played that. The reception wasn't bad, but it didn't seem like it seemed like it was a bit chillier, and it didn't have all the cool crossover stuff. Because that was good use of Sega's stuff, afterburner stages and all that, the arcade history, as well as just the mascot character stuff. That's the kind of stuff that is really cool that Mario Kart's only just started to dabble with, the Zelda stage, the Animal Crossing stage, the F-Zero stages, and then even some of the DLC stuff where it's Yoshi's Island. I mean, it is very much a Mario thing in a lot of ways, but it did feel more kind of specific than a lot of the Mario Kart tracks do, and it had a lot of cool references. Doing that for the bigger sort of cross section of Nintendo's entire history would be really, really cool. It does feel like there's a lot of untapped potential there. And now that Mario Kart is the seller, it kind of makes sense to have it be a big advertisement for everything else. You know what I mean? If this is going to be the thing that people buy when they buy their, Switch 2, whatever it's going to be called, the way that it has been for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on Switch, you want it to be just there's all this other stuff, this whole world of Nintendo shit that they're proud to be at least tangentially aware of some of it, a lot of it, but just reinforcing it, all that, it really, it should be, it's something that just seems kind of a natural kind of direction of travel thing from where Mario Kart 8 Deluxe got left off to some degree, but B, it's just part of the responsibility now of as many copies as Smash Brothers sells. Mario Kart laps it basically, so you may as well kind of not, I would imagine, to the same extent where it's an absolute licensing nightmare. I don't think you ever want to get there, but I don't know. The Sega characters.
It seems like it might be worth it.
Certainly someone they're really close with, like Namco. You kind of think could be possible.
Namco Bandai's a good one. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I just find it would be funny if Goku was not in Smash but was in Mario Kart. That's it.
That would actually be pretty. But it would have to be Child Goku because that man was obsessed with Child Goku. This is another tirade I went on the other day of they've made that man a child 4 times. He cannot get away. Riding on a cloud with wheels. Done. Characters created. Nintendo, cut the check. CTC, let's do it.
Although, Akira Toriyama drew some really, fun-looking cars. So.
He did, but Goku canonically could not pass his driver's test.
Sure.
Which is an actual episode of the show for some reason. The man who could fly around the planet in under 30 seconds had to get a driver's license. Why? Because he wanted to operate a tractor. Again, it's dumb. It's a dumb fucking series on purpose. Yeah, if you open it up to like Namco Bandai and maybe Sega to some degree, but not all the way degree, you get to some possibilities. Tecmo Koei is pretty close these days too, so that's another possibility. So we could get our leading company car where you drive around a VCR. I know that's John's choice.
Of course.
What a fucking game! What a fucking game! Yeah, I mean, Bayo Kart, you were right. That is possibly the funniest. Just Bayonetta sitting in a car made of hair.
Yeah.
But
the attacks could be pretty good too.
They could be pretty good. If you were to open it up to Double Dash style, and you put some like, the characters all have their gibberish, they yell at each other. If you could put some in there for like, depending on the combo, you've got, there's some possibilities there. One that was sitting in the back of my head was Peach and Movie Peach. So it's just a movie version of her next to the regular version of her. Call it a day. Do that for all of them. Because there are a bunch of carts from the movie. You could just stick them in there and call it a day, I guess. Donkey Kong has lots of opportunity, honestly, that you could just stick Donkey Kong characters. Because I think the farthest they've ever gone is what? Diddy?
Funky was in Mario Kart Wii and came back right at the end of the booster pass.
Oh, okay. But Funky's just regular DK in a different outfit.
I'm aware.
Okay, this is the pink gold peach of DK. I get it. Like, there's so many other options you could put. I mean, I'd love this again with the bosses now. But
K. Rool obviously did get in Smash. He was one of the more requested ones, but they've always kind of resisted that sort of thing. Well, they did resist it for ages, seemingly, didn't they? But eventually, the power of the pole and sort of won out.
K. Rool sitting in a cart would be very funny to me. Just not fitting at all. I think that's the other thing, though. You can't adapt these carts or these characters to fit. Like, if they fit, they fit. If they don't, they don't. And that's all there is to it. All right, we need to move on to the other email.
Although I have to say that Kraid needs to be in Mario Kart.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Just because you talked about fitting in carts. Like, yes. That's...
Oh, he's fitting in there, all right.
All right. Gil, would you read the last email?
Shoot, was it Ridley that they couldn't put it? Anyway,
I think they did blame the size on Ridley before they went and bloody well put him in Ultimate.
Well, yeah, I mean, they scaled him down quite a bit too.
They did, but I mean, it's like Bowser's. Sometimes he's huge, sometimes he's not. Like with Ridley, sometimes he's a cute little bird, sometimes he's a dragon. It's like, whatever, just make it work.
Yes. Sure. So Brian writes, "Dear RFN crew, in preparation for Mario vs. Donkey Kong, I dusted off the 3DS and played DK94. At first, I wonder why they wouldn't give these two games the 1+2 treatment, especially after hearing how sparse the Mario vs. DK remake might be. But as I continued to play DK94, I began to think that maybe this game is just too weird to remake in light of the carefully cultivated branding Nintendo has treated the Mario series with. Gameplay-wise, DK94 isn't that far out there, but the presentation of Mario saving Pauline from the clutches of an angry, horny DK, being assisted by DK Jr., would be a strange sight for a 12-year-old Mario fan in the year of our Mega Man Lord 2020X. So despite its age, the Mario vs. DK remake manages to be familiar by making DK's motivations more childish. Plus, they'd have to animate DK's glutes squeezing into tiny doors if they remade DK94. All of this leading up to just to ask, what other Nintendo games in core franchises do you think have simply become too off-brand for Nintendo to remake? For the sake of an interesting conversation, assume that availability through NSO would not hinder Nintendo's decision-making. I feel like there's a lot of, You know, sometimes like you read a letter and it seems to say more about the person writing it than perhaps they understood.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe Brian put a lot of himself in this email.
Yes.
That we weren't meant to see.
Yeah, I don't. The idea of a rutting DK is not something I was ready for, prepared for, or ever wanted to have. But now you have it too, audience.
DK's glutes,
I don't know.
Like pretty visceral.
Kids, ask your parents what rutting means.
I guess I don't. It has been a bit since I played DK94, but is he, perceptibly horny, or
is he visually horny?
That's an interesting question.
Can that be the episode title? Is DK visually horny? Asking for a friend.
Maybe the image quality on the Switch successor will be good enough to have DK's glute squeezing into those little doors, and that's why they remade this one for Switch, because they didn't have the technology to properly depict.
That is Nintendo.
DK.
That is something Nintendo doesn't shy away from.
DK's fur that used to be. That was, look at him, he's furry now. That was.
But I was going to say, like, when Nintendo gets the technology to make a great ass, they just go for it. Like, Pikmin 4, again, has shown that if they can add polygons to some characters' butt, they will.
Al Pacino from Heat plays Pikmin 4. Somebody make that for YouTube video now. The really, really obvious one here is Punch Out, right? Like it's something of an upset that it came back in the aughts. Was it 09? I want to say,
right?
That it came back on Wii, like. But now, like, it's not coming back again. That's why we've had the DK Punch Out conversation. It's like you'd have to dress it up differently than what it was. You just, not is that weird per se, but it's definitely off-brand to that part of the question now of just like, well, here's a bunch of national stereotypes, beat them up. It's just not, I can't see that ever happening again.
Yeah, no, I saw, like, every time I see the Punch Out arcade screen, like on the Deku deals, I guess that's the screenshot that they went with. It's the Bruce Lee character, and that is a caricature. That is
they all were.
That you probably wouldn't go with today.
And that was the appeal, right? They had these like for the time in the 80s in the arcade, really expressive, sprites that were cartoony, that were caricatures, but they were in a video game. Like that was the whole point. But again, it's just like you can't. It was a bit of an upset when it came back. Whatever it was, 15 years ago now. I can't see that happening again. Like I said, you gameplay wise, you could bring it back, but you'd have to have a different kind of presentation, I think. Which just be, Tellero Boxer is that they're going to go to that hugely beloved property.
It's the what's the game that
that
got turned into robots in Europe?
Oh, Pro Protector, yeah.
Yes, it's the Pro Protector.
You've got a ready-made Pro Protector skin to put over it.
God, no! I say lean. I stand by my statement. They should just lean in more. Just take the PR. Who cares? Lean in more. Do it. People respect that. It definitely is a winning strategy.
Also, it's kind of like, the thing is, when you talk about Nintendo, I think it's definitely true that there's things that they wouldn't bring back, right? Or that they would modify. But then on the other, in terms of just people re-releasing things, that nothing is too weird to get re-released by someone.
Right.
Because we are living in a world where plumbers don't wear ties just got re-released.
You're living in that world.
In a quote-unquote definitive edition.
I hope that version just like causes your system to blue screen. Oh my God. God help us.
So, Devil World, a game that they wouldn't bring to North America for so long, do you think that they would remake it and then bring it to us?
I think they wouldn't remake it because it's just not much to it.
It was a little bit of an upset for it to actually get on NSO, to be honest, considering it hadn't been on Virtual Console before. Both because, even now, I guess the devil thing, but also just because, it wasn't something that was that popular, I guess. It was a little bit of a, trend chasing game of, we'll make a maze game, a Pac-Man style game. And I think it's all right as those go, but it's also not as good as Pac-Man. So,
sure.
it's just,
but maybe, like when I say remake, maybe I mean, like what if, what's his name? Sakura got his hands on it and gave it the full Kid Icarus Uprising treatment.
I was thinking like Championship Edition. Like the Pac-Man Championship Edition. Like it's got neon, it's got techno, which would be even more ill-fitting with the biblical theme. But also full anime voice cast. With cutscenes and it's sometimes it's like Space Area and sometimes it's like a third-person shooter. That's also an option for Tamagon, I assume.
Yeah.
What if we were so I like the idea of just going like the full like Kid Icarus Uprising mode, but I don't know if this is the game. Like Devil World, I think really needs, again, I think this is Sakamoto's other new game where it's just it's the narrative story of Devil World, because playing I mean, mechanically, there's just not much to Devil World, and I don't know that you could do much to dress it up. But the story is so sweet and beautiful and meaningful of a devil who points in a direction and the stage moves that I'm really ready to explore the deeper meanings behind that.
Pixel hunt to find a Bible.
That's now see now you're talking about the greatest hits of the Wii generation.
I already referenced Chick Ridley, so yeah, we if we could run for like another 3 hours, I could almost like assemble Metroid Other M out of my references.
Like if Nintendo can't come up with like a cool concept for Devil World, maybe they can just get some manga artists in there to like give it to the Death Note guy and ask him like make something with this,
Castlevania. I've never played Castlevania, Judge, but I don't know how well that turned out or not.
It's bad. It's very bad and it looks ridiculous.
Yeah, as I was suggesting this, I forgot that already happened with Castlevania. It sure did,
and it's bad. It's got some interesting remixes. Did I say good? I said interesting. But it's very weird looking. The character designs are like these turned up to like 17. I think a lot of Nintendo stuff, like the model changes, but I can't think of a ton of games. I mean, I assume that wasn't there like a Tom Sawyer game that they worked on? Like there's probably some stuff that never made it out of Japan that we would never get because Japan doesn't give a shit about this stuff.
I mean, but it's Metroid Prime Federation Force is not being remade.
Yeah, but that's for PR
It's not
reasons.
Because it's too weird.
I don't know. I think it bombed because it was too off-brand.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Everybody hated it, but it's also very weird and very different.
But that's the thing.
It's about as on-brand as Metroid Prime Hunters.
It's the branding and the timing. I think is the timing of it, because, like you said, Metroid Prime Pinball exists, Metroid Prime Hunters exists,
right?
But the difference with those games is that they were nestled warmly between Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3, and it was this time where it's like they just come out every few years. The Metroid Prime train is rolling, whereas with Federation Force, it's like, we haven't had anything for Metroid for ages. Where is it? And then you have something called Metroid, and it's that, and it's just, that disgruntled baseball fan with his 2 thumbs down. So,
but the problem is that, like, normally I would said, like, Mitomo or Tomodachi Collection, but these people would absolutely remake that. The problem is Nintendo's still fucking weird. So I don't know how weird you have to get for it to be like, no, that's too weird. We can't do that anymore. We've learned our lesson. That's too strange. That's too strange. Like I'm struggling at the idea that there's something Nintendo would look at and go, well, that's just too weird. We wouldn't do that. I mean, I guess Doshin the Giant, they probably wouldn't redo Doshin the Giant. That game is really fucking strange and really difficult to play. And it's strange in ways that seemingly exist just to make it difficult to play. Not because it's like, oh, we have an idea we wanted to try here, but as a consequence, it's hard. No, it's just hard. Like, the idea was to make it difficult to play. Like, the weirdness is a feature, not a bug. That might be it. Like, that might be the thing. Like, maybe a custom Robo game is getting close to the edge of what they'd be willing to fuck around with. But the Doshin the Giant is definitely beyond the realm that they would mess with.
Would they remake Zelda 2?
Would they?
Apparently, they won't. That's the thing. That's a good point, John. I mean, this is almost one of those, as we say in economics, reveal preferred things. Like they've shown us that it's too weird for them to remake because they haven't fucking done it. Because think about everything else that's younger than Zelda 2 that has been remade, and arguably there's more. Some of it because of its weird elements, some of the rough edges. There's more sort of, upside to a Zelda 2 remake than some of the things they have remade because, that were just, they've mostly left them alone. Whereas you could kind of, make some changes to Zelda 2 that might actually get people to appreciate the things that were kind of more favourable about it in the first place. But they haven't done it, have they? So
yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I think it would be a more interesting project than a lot of remakes out there. Just from the very fact of seeing how they would approach it, because it is so different from everything else.
And like the remake they did for Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia, where they tried to preserve some of the things that made that game weird. I would like to see what they think about doing to preserve the weirdness of that game, but also making it playable in a way that actually works. Would Nintendo ever redo the arm wrestling game? Would they ever do their arm wrestling game, or is that too strange?
Considering one of the main sort of trivia points about that game is it has a Punch-Out cameo, I'm saying no, because, if we already say Punch-Out's not gonna get a look in,
that's true, yeah.
But by extension, that doesn't either.
You'd have to have Sylvester Stallone from Over the Top as DLC.
Yeah, just make it an over-the-top license.
And see, that's the thing that, to me, though, that pushes it out. Not that it's got Punch-Out. I still think they would do Punch-Out. I think the issue is that it's so of a moment where, like, for whatever reason in the 80s, people are like, arm wrestling, that's the shit. Or it's like, no, we can't do that.
It's true, but that's, again, if you make it an over-the-top game, you could just really lean into it with the full 80s,
sure,
father-son bonding montage with appropriate music, make it a nostalgia product.
Treat it like the reboot of Karate Kid.
Also raises the question, and raises the possibility, I should say, of an officially licensed over-the-top game of having a game boot up with the Nintendo logo and then the logo of the Canon Group, which surely is everyone's dream.
Oh my
Unlockable
God.
Characters, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus.
Definitely. They ended up kind of arm wrestling with each other for control of the company.
There you go. That's the last boss.
Oh, man.
I've got one from Wii U. So very, very recent. I don't mean Xenoblade X, so that's the obvious joke. Animal Crossing, what's the name of that game?
Oh, no.
The board game.
Yeah. I don't know if weird's really the word I have in mind.
It is extremely weird.
Yeah, but is it the operative word?
Well, it can have many. It can have multiple operative words. Like the issue with that game isn't that it exists or that it's so heavily dependent on Amiibo. You could deal with that.
Amiibo Festival, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's that they made a Mario Party game and took the party out. And it's like it's a Mario Party game with no mini games. It's like, well, but that's the point of the game, is to play what.
It was just Animal Crossing branded something with minimal development effort. That's what it was. So yeah, anything that is missing something was like a plus, because that made it easier to make.
Yeah, exactly. Like I understand from a business standpoint why it happened, but from a mechanical standpoint, it's such a bad product and so weird that, like, these are the people who invented this board game format, and yet they somehow fucked it up. They fucked it up so bad. And they ended up spending a lot of money putting 2 amiibo in the box anyway, which you could buy for cheaper than the cost of 2 amiibo at some point. It's like, oh man, this game's a disaster.
I do have another Donkey Kong related pick that's kind of an interesting one in terms of, it's funny that this is a game that did get re-released, but it was quite shortly after it originally came out.
Yeah.
And that's Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. You got a couple of things at work here. First of all, it's mechanically quite odd because it was originally designed to be played with the bongos. And secondly, these days, I don't know that it would fit with their current characterization of DK, you know, as it's already been touched on, like the way, even though Mario vs. DK was a product of roughly the same time period as Jungle Beat, the whole thing of making his motivations like childish and silly, like Jungle Beat has him like ripping things' tongues out.
It sure does.
I mean, obviously it's very cartoony and silly, you know, the presentation, but still he is very much like, here he is being the king of the jungle. He's just more badass than everything that lives. And he's going to beat the shit out of it, rip its tongue out, whatever. Like, so the gameplay weirdness plus that sort of depiction of DK, I couldn't see it coming back like that. It was a shame because it's the work of EAD Tokyo pre Mario Galaxy. Excellent game. Lots of fun, even if it's kind of, again, it was that part of the GameCube's history in this case where it's like they're kind of winding down. They're kind of just looking to do some stuff with, you know, name characters to just, you know, fill the gap before we get to Wii. But that's a really interesting experimental game within those parameters. There's not a ton of content. It's very much score attack thing, but a cool thing that I just, despite it coming back a few years later as a new play control game, which the Wii controls didn't really benefit it or anything, but I guess, you know, you had to do something for the people that weren't going to have bongos naturally. It's just, that's not coming back. I can't see it.
I think even Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins, that game is very strange. And I wonder if that would be too weird, too off model.
Well, apparently Super Mario Land's just too damn weird to come back, or even on NSO. I mean, this is... You already mentioned Mario Day. And of course we did have it, and we got, you know, 3 Mario games. Like,
we sure did.
Where are the Game Boy games? Oh, here they are. They had 3 of them for Mario Day. Okay, so we got Mario Golf, Mario Tennis on for Game Boy Color, both very, very good portable sports games.
But better on GBA
from Camelot. Yeah, the GBA games presumably will come, but you know that's a different tier of subscription.
You're right.
But then it's like, so the third game it's going to be, surely it'd be Super Mario Land. No, Dr. Mario, which definitely already has better versions on NSO. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's really getting conspicuous now. Where is Super? I think conspiracy theories are forming that it's like going to get remade or something, and I don't buy that. But I just don't.
That game would be like 8 minutes long.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll be like DK94, where like the start of it is that game, and then it's like 150 levels. It expands, you know, the way DK94 did with the original 4 screens of the arcade game and turned it into this sprawling adventure. I very much doubt it though. But no, I just can't fathom how that is still absent. Like it is slight, it is odd in a bunch of ways, but it's an historically important
more conspicuous by the release. The fact they released 3 Game Boy Mario games and could not deign to release his premiere on the system is conspicuous. Highly conspicuous. But yeah, I think mechanically that one's not so weird. 6 golden coins is you climb into a giant robot Mario that Mario apparently has of himself. Like there's some weird iconography in that game that they would probably just be like, nah, this is too fucked up. This is too fucked up. This is a fucked up game. Like they're probably fine to release it. Probably like Mario 2, the one that was Doki Doki Panic. Like that's also probably too fucked up for them to do any kind of remake with. It'd be like, no, this is too strange. We're not going anywhere near this.
Yeah, but again, they remade it as the launch game for GBA back in 01.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, now I don't know. It's a bunch of time has passed since then, and they do generally tend to kind of keep a bit of a tighter rein on the Mario characters. The aesthetic. I mean, look how much of a sort of saga it was to have anything that looked, somewhat different from the new Super Mario Brothers games. To get to Super Mario Brothers Wonder. I mean, right. Which it's not like entirely different aesthetically from those games either, but it's got some more personality. It's got some more style.
I've got one more that I can't believe we haven't talked about because we've mentioned it as recently as last week. Does anybody guess what it is? It's Super Princess Peach. They're not going near that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they haven't, have they? Because, they already had chances with the Wii U DS virtual console. Yeah. Like, they could have re-released it on there. They didn't.
Peach and her umbrella named Perry.
Perry the Parasol.
Yes. Perry the Parasol. And with his vibe powers, which... localization snuck something through on that one.
The vibe scepter, I believe, is a thing in that game.
Yeah. The localization team was like, what can we get away with? No, I'm going to go ahead and say that one is too weird.
But now, I'm just wondering, was it a whole vibe scepter? These are some of the sort of profundities that John confers upon us.
Yeah.
Well, on that... That's my cue. It's time to end this segment. Emails go to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. We got 2 emails in. We had to force feed them down your throat, but we got them in. So, is anybody out next week? I know, Guillaume, I think you're out for editing next week. Is that right?
Yeah.
But you're in for the show, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. All right, cool. Well, I'm probably in. I might have to bail. So we'll figure it out. But
no, man, I'm Iron Man. I'm in, obviously. You don't have to ask. So
John won't be here next week. I might not be here next week, but I'm pretty sure I will be. So on that, Greg, what's our music to end the show this week?
Well, a bunch of notable anniversaries, some of which we may return to in a future episode, but for this week I'm going to go with what on the 19th of March, and this is commemorating the game's original Japanese release in 1994, the 30th anniversary of Super Metroid. Yep, so it's we now, there was an episode we did back in 2009 about its 15th anniversary, so that now stands at the midpoint of Super Metroid history. It's nice. Pretty shocking that it's that old in a way, especially considering it's template does sort of form the spine of so many games that come out today, really. You think of something like the Prince of Persia Lost Crown game I just played and all that. It's though it hardly invented it whole cloth or anything, but it definitely set down that template that the Symphony of the Night, of course, would run with a few years later, and together they kind of have inspired so many games from companies, large and small in the decade since. But as the soundtrack to that is very familiar, I thought I'd find something that was obviously directly inspired by it, but not actually in the game. So again, I think I've used one of these before. It might have been for a Star Fox anniversary. In the 90s, there was a series of orchestral game concerts that would take themes from games and make orchestral arrangements out of them and perform them, and then they released albums of them later. And so they did a whole suite for Super Metroid, right? Covers a bunch of the themes in the game, like the 2 different areas of Brinstar feature and the Space Pirates motif and all this kind of stuff. So it's too long to have the whole thing as the closing music. We're kind of going to pick up as it sort of moves towards the end, where it's covering the kind of the prologue theme, where it's recapping what happened in the other two games, and then moving into the end credits, naturally, when you're finishing off the game. So it's, exactly what you'd expect, just a, pretty faithful orchestral rendition of, what was originally obviously very, synth driven, score, but sounds really nice. Even if they do seem to overstretch the brass section at the end, it doesn't quite sound right. But still, it's a really fun thing, and that whole series is fun because some of the arrangements that they did in that sort of series of concerts were the basis for the versions in Super Smash Bros. Melee years later. Not in this case, but still, yeah. So if you track those down, there's some fun things to listen to.
Cool. All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.